Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Tuesday, March 12th, 2019. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Trump's budget details will be ignored until the 2020 election commences. Meanwhile, speaking of 2020, Joe Biden enters the race. Beto to follow.
Boo.
Meanwhile,
Boo.
Nancy Pelosi doesn't understand what impeachment's for. New York Attorney General opens investigations of Trump Inc. And Facebook makes Warren's case for Facebook's demise. Meanwhile, the Writers Guild is at war with hedge funds posing as talent agencies. If you're making dinner plans tonight, introducing MAGA Yelp. Meanwhile, Amazon warehouses seem to be labs for suicide attempts. And the Mueller probe already funded through September of 2019. Meanwhile, Venezuela still in blackout as the United States pulls its remaining diplomats. All this and more. Oh, I should also add Bolsonaro associates arrested in the Socialist City Councilwoman's assassination.
Marielle Franco.
All this and more on today's Majority Report. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the program. It is Tuesday, as we said earlier. We are all accounted for here. Everyone seems to be in decent health, adjusting to daylight to spring ahead. My kids, I thought it was me, but my kids do not adjust to this, and then they make my life miserable. So if I'm a little testy today, that's why, because I'm exhausted. They stay up later, and they don't. I don't know. They're angry in the morning.
It wasn't exactly
not
rocky in here when I came in this morning. That is the truth.
No.
Well, one more thing the Rev will do is abolish daylight savings and spring forward and replace it with secular time.
Circular?
Pseudo. I can't talk this morning. Cyclical time. Yes.
There you go. No, there won't even be clocks, ladies and gentlemen.
Time's just a construct, man.
However, let's get to the important stuff. Look, a lot of folks turn to this program for because they're foodies and they want to hear some of the latest recipes or what we're doing with different when we did try out different foods and whatnot.
Different kind of Pop-Tarts.
Different kind of Pop-Tarts and good restaurant recommendations. Well, your wait is over, ladies and gentlemen. We are no longer needed because finally, someone has come up with an app that allows you to safely eat at a restaurant if you're a conservative. Here is the story from, of course, Fox and Friends.
We wanted to make sure that people could let others know what restaurants may have a political bent. Now, we're not looking to try and find restaurants that are conservative or pro-Trump. Our aim is to get politics out of local businesses, local restaurants, and make everyone feel comfortable when they go out.
Okay, and so I've seen this described as Yelp for conservatives, but Scott, on the locations that are deemed,
do they have they have literally hundreds of producers working there. How is it that the guest just said we're trying to get politics out of everything, and then they come back with, and this is Yelp for conservatives? Let's check it out here.
On the locations that are deemed unsafe, and that one right there is safe. What went into saying they're not safe?
Sure. Well, users can review the local businesses and restaurants. It's just 4 quick questions, yes or no questions. Number 1, does this location serve all customers regardless of political beliefs? Will they protect their customers if they're under attack by others in the restaurant? There's a concealed carry question, and does the location have a political presence in their social media? Again, we're trying to get politics out of these businesses. We want businesses to understand that there's no money in politics, and we're working to call them out on it. People just
Pause it for a second. I should tell you, the guy who wants businesses to understand there's no money in politics, if you go to 63 or 63rd or 63red.com, I don't know what this 63, I don't know what the number 63 is, but it literally starts off, welcome to 63 Red, a family of conservative tools. It is a company, a business that is making money through politics with 63rd News, conservative news, 63 Red, keeping conservatives safe, 63 Red, real-time conservative chat, 63 Red, gather conservatives together. Have we figured out what the 63 is about?
I'm trying to find it right now. Looks like they had some sort of DDoS attack earlier in the day.
Well, they did accurately name themselves as conservative tools, so that's good.
There you go. All right. And so here's this guy. We just want businesses to know that you can't make money from politics.
Just to understand that there's no money in politics, and we're working to call them out on it. People just want to go out and eat. They just want to go out and shop. Let's not mix the two. There's sort of a general unease among conservatives, and we want to make sure everyone's safe out.
So, everybody's safe out there.
They're looking
this reminds me
a space.
Literally this reminds me of the last
space.
Majority Report dinner, and we saw this guy in the corner. He was reading a Wall Street Journal, and I said, "Hey Sam, you think?" I don't know.
Roughed him up.
Let's just do it anyways. And we put down our glasses, and we beat him in an alleyway.
Like literally, I went
no,
like,
no,
"Oh, someone hold my glasses."
Yeah, Sam said, "Hold my glasses." Matt
this
said,
is just unbelievable.
Matt was like, "God damn it! All right, I'll stretch out."
And you can almost see like Ducey and what's her name, Ainsley Earhart's brains actually working as he's saying, "There's no money in politics," and they're just sitting there going, "What?" But
we said Kaepernick did it for the money.
That's all there is. That's all there is. Folks, do you remember 1989? Sadly, I do. This is the year the World Wide Web was invented. We've come a long way since then. So why does it feel like software you use every day at work is stuck in the past? Take a leap into the future by finding the right software for your business on Capterra.com, the leading free online resource to help you find the best software solution for your business. They have over 700,000 reviews of products from real software users. Capterra has everything you need to make an informed decision. Search more than 700 specific categories of software, from project management to email marketing. No matter what your business needs, Capterra makes it easy to discover the right solution fast. Folks, it's a free service. They've simply aggregated all, I imagine, I don't think it's all existing, but it feels like it, business software, and with reviews from people who actually use them. Jamie, pick a letter.
L.
All right, I'm going to go down to L. You're not going to believe this. They have laboratory information management system software, land management software, landing page software, landscape software, law enforcement software, law practice management software, lawn care software, lead capture software, lead generation software, lead management software. L was probably the wrong choice because I think we could be here literally all day. Library automation software. I'm going to skip a couple. Live chat.
Podcast software.
Live chat software. I mean, I'm literally looking at this. I'm going like, this is where I should check out where we get live chat software and the landing page software. Logbook software. Log management software. That's not lumberjack stuff. It's the other kind. Long-term care software, lost and found software. And I only read like a fraction of the L's, folks. You got to check this out. It's actually just fun to go through it, even if you don't have any software needs. Visit capterra.com/majority for free today.
Become a polymath.
Exactly.
Expand your horizon.
Nothing like being in a conversation going like, you know what, you need some manufacturing execution software. I mean, just off the top of my head, I can tell you that, the highest rated one is Master Control probably. Or maybe you might want IQMS, MES. I'm not sure. You should check them out. Capterra.com/majority. That's Capterra, CAPTERRA. Did I even spell that right? CAPTERRA.com/majority. Tim Apple Tim. Doesn't matter. Also, has your company outgrown QuickBooks? Are shared spreadsheets, manual processes, and legacy systems costing you time and money? Introducing NetSuite by Oracle, the business management software that handles every aspect of your business in an easy-to-use cloud platform. With NetSuite, you can save time, money, and unneeded headaches by managing sales, HR, finance, and accounting instantly right from your desk or even your phone. Thousands of the best-known and fastest-growing companies use NetSuite to manage their business, and now it is available to you. Better yet, it's more affordable than you think. Because right now, NetSuite is offering you valuable insights to help you overcome the obstacles that are holding you back for free. Don't miss out on unleashing your business's full potential with this free guide, Crushing the 5 Barriers to Growth. You'll learn how to acquire new customers, increase profits, finally get real visibility to your cash flow. Michael has already downloaded this.
Yes.
Get NetSuite's guide, Crushing the 5 Barriers to Growth at netsuite.com/majority now. That's netsuite.com/majority to download their free Crushing the 5 Barriers to Growth guide today. netsuite.com/majority. All right, let's take a look at this Donald Trump budget because in the 2 years that the Trump administration has put out his budget, even the Republicans ignored it largely, and certainly it's going to get even more ignored this time. However, and it really makes you wonder what the theory is here as to why they're doing this. But here is Larry Kudlow going on Fox News Sunday to sort of roll this budget out. Kudlow does not look like he's been working out in the whatever exercise regime he was on before he joined the administration. I think that's ended.
Last time we said this, he had to take a health break.
Yeah.
So.
I am, Mr. Joke about anything. I don't worry about it. And I was all set for some great Kudlow health regimen material. And then I saw him on screen. I was like, oh, whoa, okay. I have no comment after that.
President Trump's top.
Okay, wait, hold on for 1 second. I guess we want to play this in a different order here. Let's do it this way. So Donald Trump, one of the things he ran on early on in his campaign. Now, look, I think people who know anything about politics knew that he was full of crap. But one of the things he ran on was this idea that he was not like a Republican, that he had even said to the Republicans, like, I don't know why you would ever go after Medicare or Social Security. People love these things. And so he put himself out there as the one guy, particularly in the Republican Party, who was going to save Social Security, was going to save Medicare from the Republicans. Here he is back. This is a montage of the times that he talked about this.
I'll save Social Security. I'll save Medicare. Ben Carson wants to get rid of Medicare. You can't get rid of Medicare. Medicare is a program that works. Every Republican wants to do a big number on Social Security. They want to do it on Medicare. They want to do it on Medicaid. And we can't do that. And it's not fair to the people that have been paying in for years, and now all of a sudden they want to be cut. Don't get rid of Medicare. You can't do that. People love Medicare, and it's unfair to them. I'm going to fix it, make it better, but I'm not going to cut it.
Now, that's pretty explicit. He said that throughout at least the Republican primary, maybe didn't harp on it as much during the general. He also seems significantly more lucid at that time, at a time when we thought, like, this guy's a little bit off. So it just shows how sort of far we've traveled. He's not the only one in the administration who claims that they're not that, well, first off, as a candidate, he was not going to cut it. And now his acting director of the Office of Management and Budget, or I should say the White House budget director, makes this claim about Medicare and Medicaid.
Two quick questions. One, to go back to drill down a little bit on what John Carl asked. If the deficit is such a problem, why not at least cut the rate of increase to the defense and to the defense budget? And secondly, he has said promises kept, but we're cutting Medicare. How does that keep his promise to the American people?
He's not cutting Medicare in this budget. What we are doing is putting forward reforms that lower drug prices, that because Medicare pays a very large share of drug prices in this country, has the impact of finding savings. We're also finding waste, fraud, and abuse, but Medicare spending will go up every single year by healthy margins, and there are no structural changes for Medicare beneficiaries.
The defense budget, why not at least cut the rate of increase if the deficit is such concern, it's in the trillions, why not cut at least the increase?
Because he's the commander-in-chief, and he thinks it's important to secure the country. It's one of his most basic constitutional responsibilities. The military put forward a 5-year defense plan. It was done over a series of years about the needs, which gets back to John's question. We are going along with that 5-year defense plan. In addition, we're putting additional dollars towards the military construction funds that we have tapped.
So, in other words, let me break that down for you. One, yeah, he lied about not cutting Medicare and Medicaid. We're going to be doing that in our budget. And two, why are we increasing the rate in which we increase the Pentagon budget? Because the president's insane and thinks that there's a national security threat, particularly at the border. And that's basically where we're at. Here is, and this is the problem with the Trump administration. It's not just that they're bad people, they're bad at what they do. So it is, that old stupid or evil. It's sort of both with these guys. On one hand,
both ends.
Donald Trump had said, as a candidate, I'm not going to touch Medicare. I'm not going to touch Social Security. Then the White House acting budget director says, oh, we're not cutting Medicare, even though our budget says we are. We found savings. And we're taking those savings off the table, right? Incidentally, guys, I want to talk about some savings I found in your salaries.
The best savings.
But then they send out their chief economic advisor to Fox News Sunday, and Larry Kudlow explains why they actually do have to cut these things.
President Trump's top White House economic advisor, Larry Kudlow. Larry, welcome back to Fox News Sunday.
Thank you.
All right. The president sends a new budget to Congress tomorrow that will reportedly call for stiff domestic spending cuts in environmental programs, transportation, anti-poverty programs, at the same time that he's calling for a big increase in defense spending, and you've still got those tax cuts. Why do that on the domestic side?
Why not? I mean, if you want to do
Fawcett, one second. Why not?
Can't
sort of
argue with
like
that.
why, when you're over 60, why not have a $1,000 a day Coke habit? Maybe you've tried, you've done the Weight Watchers, you've done the diets,
Yeah.
whatever. But you know,
Not
your
the
kids
first
are-
time Larry
your kids
said,
are
"Why
through
not?"
college.
Larry, you've been on the web. Well, why not?
It's back to the 80s. Donald Trump's around. I'm around. The
just
Coke's
like-
around. Things are flowing.
You got to hand it to him for not following up with that. Like, I'm rich. Just go backwards. I love that. Why not? Like, this is the thing to do.
Can I write off stimulants?
Why do that on the domestic side?
Why not? I mean, if you want to deal with budget deficits, you've got rapid growth, which means keep the tax cuts in place. We believe the 3% growth rate of 2018 will continue in 2019 and beyond 2020 and so forth. I think the other element is always to limit spending, and the president is proposing roughly a 5% across-the-board reduction in domestic spending accounts. It will be a tough budget. We're going to do our own caps this year, and I think it's long overdue. Some of these recent budget deals have not been favorable towards spending. So I think it's exactly the right prescription.
All right, you say that you're going to have a 5% domestic spending cut. On the other hand, reportedly, you're going to ask for another $8.6 billion from DHS, Homeland Security, and the Pentagon to build the wall. So there's going to be another budget fight over the wall?
Well, I suppose there will be. I would just say that the whole issue of the wall and border security is of paramount importance. We have a crisis down there. I think the president has made that case very effectively. It's a crisis of economics. It's a crisis of crime and drugs. It's a crisis of humanity. We have to be much tougher and have more constructive immigration.
I mean, you know what's fascinating about this to me is to know how thoroughly and deeply this guy also knows that he's lying. Like, there's nothing that he's saying right now that he knows to be even remotely close to the truth. And I get this is the job that he's got to do. But this is shocking. Like, it's just his ability to sit there and lie with stuff that he knows. Because you understand that everything else he's saying is at least, at the very least, like motivated truth. This is just out and out like I've got to say this. I've got to say it. It cuts against everything I believe. I got to say it because this is my job. Now, it also explains maybe why he's such a wreck and he can barely keep his eyes open on a Sunday morning.
I sent you guys another theory as to why he's such a wreck, which maybe we could put on screen for
All
a
right,
second.
well, let's keep going here.
Crisis of humanity. We have to be much tougher and have more constructive immigration policy, which we will be developing over a period of time. So, yes, he's going to stay with his wall, and he's going to stay with the border security thing. I think it's essential.
Okay. Here's the problem with this. You talk about balancing the budget and that the way you're going to do it is by cutting 5% in all domestic spending. But you know that if you take entitlements off the table, that you just can't get enough from domestic discretionary spending to cut the budget. And your new budget is a case in point. Traditionally, Republican presidents have said, we're going to balance the budget, and our budget, they projected out that it's going to balance the budget in 10 years. Your new budget doesn't balance the budget until 15 years, until the 2030s. And the question I have is, you and I have known each other a long time. When I covered you in the Reagan years, you cared, and you thought that deficits and debt mattered. What happened?
Not overwhelmingly so, by the way, during the Reagan years. Look, I don't think...
We were joking. We were joking. We didn't really care. You misinterpreted, dude.
I fucking got you, idiot.
40 years in the making.
What happened?
Not overwhelmingly so, by the way, during the Reagan years. Look, I don't think good growth policies have to obsess necessarily about the budget deficits and so forth. Look, Chris, my view, and I believe the view of the administration, we are going to point a steady glide path towards lower federal spending and federal borrowing as a share of the economy, as a share of GDP. That lowers the burden
But
of
the
the debt.
deficit increased by an enormous amount in the first few months of this fiscal year. I think 70%.
We're going to run, I think, about 4.5% to 5% of GDP. That's a very modest number compared even with the recent past and with our
It's going to be close to $1 trillion.
Perhaps so.
I mean, just it's hard to appreciate how monumental this is. This guy has been the sort of probably one of the most prominent Reaganites that has been sort of still in the news and in the mix. He had his own TV show on CNBC. They ran as recently as midway through the Obama administration, maybe at least towards the end of the first, but certainly into the midway into the second. The idea of deficits was literally as much of the conservative brand as a signifier as the Second Amendment and abortion. I distinctly remember 3 or 4 years ago sitting here saying their deficit obsession is just one more signifier. It is meaningless in many respects, but they will grab it as tightly and as white knuckled as they grab their guns. And now one of the guys who's considered one of the few guys I think might be around, like actually articulating things since from the Reagan era, is out here and basically saying, meh. Now I happen to think that his position is correct, but they've jettisoned this within a matter of 36 months.
Yeah, he's like an MMT guy now for the wall.
It's nuts. It's nuts.
That's a very modest number compared even with the recent past and with our long-term
It's going to be close to $1 trillion.
Perhaps so, but the economy is $20 trillion. And net worth today, household net worth is about $100 trillion. So I don't think that's a burden on the economy. And I think all the incoming data. Look, here's something. Let's go to the financial markets.
Striking. Really
Did
striking.
you guys see that apropos of nothing? It was just some interesting news from the Daily News. If you just wanted to see that headline for a second.
All right. Well, in the meantime, let me get to some of these numbers that they are actually are cutting.
5% across the board, right? Every single agency gets cut equally.
That's right, except for they have $1.5 trillion in cuts to Medicaid over 10 years. This is going to be a function of work requirements. These are the savings, incidentally. And understand, when you hear the word savings, it's just they're figuring out a means in which to deny eligibility to people or to cover less. And that is what theoretically a savings is. Start with Medicare. $845 billion from Medicare. $241 billion from Medicaid through structural reforms, as well as a 9% cut across on non-defense programs. So when they talk about 5% across the board, they're averaging out stuff. $1.5 trillion in cuts to Medicaid over 10 years. They will block grant this to states, which, of course, then begins almost an automatic process of cutting each year. $845 billion to Medicare over 10 years, which is about a 10% cut. And it's supposedly going to be, wasteful spending and provider payments, which, of course, is a bit of a joke. $25 billion in cuts to Social Security over 10 years, including cuts to disability insurance, a $220 billion cut to SNAP over 10 years, a $21 billion cut to TANF, that's the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, which is super unfunded already, and it's one of the few cash assistance programs we have for folks living in the worst of poverty. $207 billion in cuts to the student loan program. It's going to eliminate parts of the public service loan forgiveness program and cutting subsidized student loans. Increases in defense spending, of course, by $34 billion next year. $8.6 billion in funding for the border wall. And it's more overall a 9% cut to non-defense programs, Section 8 housing vouchers, public housing programs, Head Start, WIC, which is the nutrition program for women, infants, and children, of course. So many fat babies walking around these days. They're going to cut the low-income home energy assistance program. We're going to hear more about this during the course of the campaign. You're going to have the Democratic candidate, I would be betting, don't know who it is and don't know exactly what version, but they're going to be articulating some form of a Medicare for all program versus Trump's cuts to Medicare.
In 2016, Paul Ryan said explicitly, and I remember playing it on the show, don't worry about what he's saying on the campaign trail. If he wins the presidency, we're going to dictate the budget process and we're going to cut all these programs and give you tax cuts.
And he's actually gone out ahead of them. I mean,
Right.
look,
And
let's be honest. Donald Trump's not looking over these numbers going like, I've looked into Medicare. We can have some savings here. This is all reflection of the right-wingers that came into office with him. And he is one of them because he doesn't care.
He doesn't care. But I think the big takeaway is the kind of like the Bannon hustle is done. Like, this is just a pure Reagan, whatever you want to call it, agenda. There's not going to be any of that counter spin anymore.
I beg to differ. I'm going to be a little bit more naked in my
Well,
racism.
in terms of the racism, but again, I'm saying I'm predicating that on like, yes, more naked, but the racism and xenophobia has already been there, as AOC so elegantly reminded us about Reagan. The specific scam of Bannonism was the fake sort of pivot to populism.
Yeah, it was like a European-style national
red Tory. It's
socialism
done.
kind of thing.
He wants to slash the EPA by 31%. Like I said, also the student loan forgiveness program. If you head into some type of service job on a federal, state, or local level. Now, again, this stuff is not going to be enacted. We need to wait and see what happens in terms of the budget. My guess is we're just going to see the same more or less trajectory. Of course, the deficits will continue to grow because of the tax cuts. It will not be a big deal, the deficits, until the day a Democratic president takes office and attempts to expand programs that provide material benefit for the most amount of people. On that day, and to be fair, it'll probably be a ramp up as soon as Grover Norquist realizes the Republicans are going to lose. The deficit will be meaningless. And Larry Kudlow, if he's still with us in one form or another, will start talking about, I said when we're moving into the red zone. Before we were not in the red zone, now we're going to be. I mean, that's the game that's always been. And it's going to return that way. That's what Republicans do. And you will hear the save the debt people. Remember how much money they were spending during the Obama years? They were rolling out stuffed cans.
They were spending enough money that if they were really serious about the problem, why weren't they writing checks to the federal government themselves to solve the problem?
Exactly. They had former senators, dancing the
Harlem Shake.
The Harlem Shake
so
and
Jesus Christ. Alan Simpson.
Exactly. Now, good news. Trump's budget is going to steer an extra $20 million to the Jack Nicklaus-based hospital project that is down in Miami. So
it's inspiring. There's a lot of, and what you do is you get people, and sometimes they haven't had a hand job yet before. It's like a Make-A-Wish for adults.
All right, let's talk about Joe Biden. We're going to be talking about him quite a bit, I would imagine. Now he's entering the race. Right now, Joe Biden, enters the race atop all of at least the majority of polls. There's part of this is a function of name recognition. Bernie and Joe Biden have the highest name recognition of any of the candidates in the race at this point. It doesn't account for all of their lead, but certainly a significant portion of it. And I think one could argue that at the very least, when it comes to positions, I would be willing to bet, and to be fair, I haven't seen any type of poll like this, but I would be willing to bet that if you were to list 10 issues and put in a column, what does Joe Biden believe? And do the same exercise with Bernie Sanders, that Bernie Sanders supporters, 25%, let's call it, in these polls, versus Biden's supporters, let's call it 28%, just for the heck of it, that I would bet a lot of those Biden supporters don't realize the positions he's taken when he was actually in the business of taking positions that weren't a function of him being vice president. And here is Joe Biden. Is this him announcing? Is this his announcement? Yeah, here's his announcement right here, and he pegs it to Trump's budget, which, of course, is not ever going to happen. But
I was going to stay away from this, but I can't. Did you see the budget was just introduced? It cuts $845 billion, almost $1 trillion cut in Medicare, and almost $250 billion, $240 billion cut in Medicaid. Why? Because of a tax cut for the super wealthy that created a deficit of $1.9 trillion, and now they got to go make somebody pay for it. Something that gave millionaires and billionaires excessive tax breaks. And who are they asking to pay for it? Middle-class families like you, the neighborhood I grew up in. Trading Medicare and Medicaid for tax breaks? How that's going to help anybody in this room, or most of the people you live with? How's that going to help this country?
He was hinting at in that speech that he was going to declare. He declared, I guess, today,
yeah,
right? He announced.
If only there were a candidate running who's willing to go after the millionaires and billionaires.
Right, I know. But we're not going to talk about Bernie right now. We're going to talk about Biden. And so Biden is running a campaign that I think sounds exactly like one you would have run 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, right? And I think over the course of this campaign, it's going to be clear in the Democratic primary voters are going to want more than this. And
can I ask a question, though? Isn't it very well reported, and I'm trying to find source here, but when Obama offered the worst of the... Okay, you're getting to that?
I'm getting
That's
to
Biden, right?
Yes. And so the problem is that Biden's record is going to catch up with him. And specifically in the idea of cutting Medicare and cutting so-called entitlements, which are a silly name. They're simply programs that they're social insurance programs that people have paid into. During the Obama administration, and longtime listeners of the show will remember this, because every time Digby would come on the program, we would talk about it. From day one of the Obama administration, literally day one, in January of 2009, Obama was on record as saying that we're going to have some type of entitlement reform. And he was looking to cut Social Security and to perhaps raise the eligibility age for Medicare. This was on the agenda for at least 4 years, nearly 4 years. First, certainly from 2010 to 2012, it was near the top of the agenda for the Obama administration. They were trying to cut Social Security through the way that they were going to index cost of living increases. They were floating this idea of raising the eligibility age for Medicare. At one point, Obama was seeking a grand bargain with the Republicans. And Joe Biden was the lead person in the Obama administration who went to John Boehner and said, here's the deal we will give you. We want modest tax increases on the rich, and we will put on the table cuts to Social Security. In fact, this deal was on the table for almost a year. If it were not for the lunatics in the Freedom Caucus who did not want to empower John Boehner and refused to accept any increases in taxes because of the nature of their supporters, Barack Obama would have successfully cut Social Security and perhaps raised the eligibility age of Medicare with the help, and understand how this works in an administration. They don't randomly pick an emissary. It's the opposite. Those people who have the proposals come and propose the deal to the president. And the president says, I agree with that proposal. I dispatch you to go out and do it and make it happen. This idea, there was no reluctance, I can assure you, on the part of Joe Biden for this. And so it's incredibly disingenuous. And how do we know that this guy could have bought into something like that? All you need to do is look at his record. He entered into the Senate as a conservative when it came to everything but, well, here it is. When it comes to 1974, he told the Washingtonian, when it comes to civil rights and civil liberties, I'm a liberal, but that's it. I'm really quite conservative on most other issues. In fact, he went on, a lot of us sit around thinking up ways to vote conservative just so we don't come out with a liberal rating. That's what he said.
I believe that, and I think that lasted through at least the aughts.
Yep. He had a fairly liberal foreign policy record relative to the era, which was more conservative than it is now. But when it came to his domestic politics, in terms of like what material benefits he was willing to provide for banks and wealthy people versus the rest of Americans, the Joe Six-Pack guys that he really relates to because he likes trains, he voted more with Reagan than he did anybody else. He voted for the omnibus Reagan tax bill. I remember this. I was actually interning in D.C. in '86, getting beer for a congressman from Quincy, Mass. every day. That was my job.
Joe Biden's an asshole, dude. Yeah.
He cut that top income tax rate from 70% to 50%. It exempted many families from the estate tax. He called for a spending freeze on Social Security. His pitch in '87 was very much in line with Bill Clinton's. It was very much government is the problem. The era of big government is over. Government's an obstacle. We're going to work around that. We need to, he said, quote, we must demand more of ourselves. Our managers, our workers, our consumers are needed to change their attitudes to revitalize society because government is not, that's not what government's for. was deeply in favor of the welfare reform. He voted for the Rigel-Neal Interstate Banking Act, which allowed banks to expand across state lines. He voted to repeal Glass-Steagall, which he said he regretted in 2016. It was a couple years too late to regret that. He voted to bar federal or state supervision of credit default swaps. I mean, there's a reason why they called him DMVNA. Now, Delaware, to be fair, is
a garbage place.
Well, it's all where all the credit card companies come because they can avoid all sorts of taxes there.
A garbage place.
But it's not a question of him being the sort of like serious lefty who had to just make some compromises. He got elected from there because he was one of them. That's the oxygen he breathes. He was instrumental in the overhaul of American bankruptcy law. And this bankruptcy law was done to protect the interests of credit card companies who were afraid that American families could go into bankruptcy and be shielded and get some type of bankruptcy relief from their credit card debt. Now understand, if you're a company or you're like Trump Inc., you go into bankruptcy and you get your debts relieved. He did not want this to happen with American families when they owed money to credit card companies. Elizabeth Warren, I think at that time, if I remember correctly, was, I think, writing on a section of Talking Points memo as a law professor at Harvard going, this is incredibly cruel. And we see all these medical-induced bankruptcies. We see all of these other bankruptcies, just horrible for folks. He also wasn't so great on race back in the day. Or
can I just add one really quick? That's why his new, I don't want to hear millennials complaining is not just a gaffe. It's a reflection of a worldview.
Well, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, look, the best defense you can make for this guy is, well, you have to understand, his politics formed in another era. And that's why they are so out of touch today. Well, I think that's a perfectly fine defense. But it is exactly the reason why he shouldn't even be running.
Yeah, and a lot of other people running are pretty old too. So,
I mean, that's true. That's true. I mean, Sanders is the same age. Warren, more or less the same age. Warren, of course, was not in politics at that time, and Sanders is fairly unique in U.S. politics.
And when he says he's liberal on civil rights issues, does that extend to measures to integrate schools, like, say, busing?
It did not at that time. It did not at that time. No, there's going to be a lot more coming out about Joe Biden. Also, people start talking about the reason why Anita Hill was the lone accuser of Clarence Thomas that most people know of. It's because Joe Biden prevented the 3 women who had other stories about Clarence Thomas from testifying. These are all things you're going to hear a lot of in the coming days and weeks. Now, with that said, there's value for other candidates for Joe Biden to be in there.
Thank you.
I think it helps Bernie.
I do want to watch, disingenuous pundits who, are constantly lying about Bernie to see how they handle Joe Biden's, in actuality, tremendously problematic record.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. That's going to be interesting.
Battle of the old white guys. I can't wait to see how centrists are going to spin Biden as the more racially sensitive candidate. I'm sure they're going to try, but
it's not going to be hard.
Dealt with him with the invasion of Iraq yet. I mean, it's incredible. You can go through any single metric that somebody will be voting and thinking on, whether it is the so-called identity issues or the so-called economic issues or foreign policy. And this guy is just a catastrophe.
But
he is a talented politician, and he does have a certain charisma that people
That's
outside of
absolutely true.
this world like and should not be underestimated.
Without a doubt.
He's friends with Obama.
Without a doubt.
You saw the memes.
Yeah. The speech that he gave at that fireman's, that is extremely effective for those folks. Well, what's going to be very difficult for people to swallow is, I mean, look, the reason why Barack Obama picked him as a running mate, and they may very well be, I imagine they're good friends by now. He needed foreign policy experience. And frankly, Joe Biden, when he went out there and said that, Barack Obama was a very clean and articulate black guy. I don't know if people remember that.
I don't think he said black guy, but yes, he did say clean and
It
articulate.
was implied.
It was bad enough.
It was basically he became for Obama what Al Gore thought Joe Lieberman was going to be for him. Right? Joe Lieberman was the big moral the big voice of morality scold against Bill Clinton. And so Al Gore wanted Joe Lieberman as a way of being able to say, I'm at arm's length from Bill Clinton.
I'm just
it's a huge
concerned that
mistake.
the blowjobs are really distracting us from banning video games and killing Arabs.
Right, exactly. And I think in many respects, Joe Biden was provided for Obama the same type of message to the broader country, like I'm at arm's length from guys like Jesse Jackson and those other types that Joe. I mean, I think there was a similar dynamic there, and so we'll see. I don't think
he's a white guy.
It's not just that he's a white guy.
He's got the same kind of a populist vibe, which Bernie also has, but used to completely different ends.
Right. I'm saying something different. I'm saying not just that he's a white guy. There's a lot of white guys. We've had a lot of white guys.
Yeah, but he appeals to the people who might have got mad at Obama for guns, God, and religion.
That's right. That's right. And
he talks like your grandpa, who's not trying to be racist, but still kind of is.
He had a sort of a blue collar type of quality, and also a sort of I think that perspective too. Somebody who was, against busing, against school integration, and regardless of whether one thinks that was the politics of that era, that is not the era we live in anymore.
I also do. It's way less important, but the way he had to drop out of '88 but it speaks to some of his right. I mean, he plagiarized speeches from Neil Kinnock, who was the Labor Party leader, and they were the very personal passages. They weren't like, oh, I like the way he formulated that argument for infrastructure investment. It was like, I grew up in the coal mines kind of rhetoric, like very weird stuff to be plagiarizing. So maybe even when he does put that across, you have to question some of the sincerity of it too.
I'm calling it. We're going to hear a lot of stories about him being a groper, and they're going to come soon after he announces.
You think so?
That is my prediction.
We'll see. Well, we'll see. We should get a pool going once everybody's jumped in. Beto's going to jump in. I actually think that Biden is good for Beto. Because he can sort of draft behind Biden.
I think he is. I think though it's going to be interesting to me. And again, I'll only frame this in terms of Bernie because this is a hit on Bernie. Bernie's been very clear that I'm in this to win it. I'm incredibly serious about it, and he's already taking off the table. A Democrat needs to win. Period. Joe Biden has borderline endorsed Republican House candidates, which we played clips of, and Beto O'Rourke specifically has refused to support, I forget her name, but a very progressive candidate because of a personal Hurd. He's friends with Hurd. So I think what's interesting in some ways, Biden, it's either going to be that everybody discovers his policy history and all of a sudden he just tanks, which is possible, or it could be most Democratic primary voters doesn't mean he wins, but he's just inoculated. Like, it doesn't matter. We know him. We like him. I think in Beto's case, I think there is much more of like a, it's even like me. I love Beto O'Rourke when he's running against Ted Cruz. But what are your positions on oil? What are your positions on endorsing fellow Democrats? So I don't know. I think it could be trickier than Beto than we realize. And I think Biden is more inoculated in a way because of his age and the way he's just been around forever,
Well, I, for one, cannot wait to hear what kind of nickname Trump comes up with for him.
For Joe Biden?
Yeah.
Doesn't he have one already? How did he not have one in the...
Dopey Joe.
Handsy Joe.
Dopey Joe.
We'll see.
All right, folks. Don't forget, you can take a leap into the future with Capterra.com, the leading free online resource to help you find the best software solution for your business. With over 700,000 reviews of products from real software users, Capterra can help you make an informed decision no matter what your business needs. Visit Capterra.com/majority for free today to find the right tools to make 2019 the year for your business. Capterra.com/majority. Capterra, that's CAPTERRA.com/majority. Don't forget, this program relies on your support. By becoming a member, you support the free show. We give you extra content. Just pennies a day, ladies and gentlemen, and you can be a member of the Majority Report. Go to jointhemajorityreport.com. Don't forget, we will not lock anyone out of the fun half for lack of funds. A little bit behind on the emails, but we will catch up. Believe me. Believe me. So send us an email at majorityreporters@gmail.com if you want access to the fun half, but you don't have the funds to do so. Otherwise, support something that you listen to. Go to jointhemajorityreport.com. Also, justcoffee.coop. Fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate. Use the coupon code majority. Get 10% off. Today is Tuesday, March 12th, which means it's a Tuesday.
Indeed. Tonight, John Idarola from the Young Turks makes his debut on TMBS, and then Joshua Kahn, who is a long-term activist and organizer globally in the LGBTQ movement and the climate justice movement. We talk about building a culture of activism, how it actually works, the mechanics of building campaigns and building community. We're going to be starting live at around 7-ish on the TMBS YouTube channel, where there are plenty of clips. And this weekend, an illicit history of Joe Biden with Zach Carter for TMBS patrons, patreon.com/TMBS.
Jamie.
Out now on the Antifada, we have a patrons-only bonus wherein we talk about electoral politics with Hamilton Nolan from Splinter News, specifically the candidacy of one Bernard Sanders. Hamilton wrote a couple articles a while ago that was sort of urging Bernie not to run. So we have a little back and forth about that.
Did you read his report from the Bernie rally in Brooklyn?
I did not.
He was definitely some reversals going on.
Oh, that's good. I feel like we might have changed his mind with some of the things we said too. So I don't want to take all the credit for that, but yeah, I think he's on board now. And then tomorrow we are releasing a new episode with interviews that Andy did while he was down in Tijuana with people from the migrant caravan that's getting so much attention right now, telling their stories in their own words.
Yeah, check out Literary Hangover. Also, do you want to find out what Trump's nickname for Biden is? This is from 5 months ago.
Yes,
How about
please.
that group? Biden. We call him 1% Biden. Until Obama took him off the trash heap, he couldn't do it.
What?
What's 1%?
Oh, wait, that might mean polling 1%. I thought it was
got 1% in the polls in
Oh,
Iowa.
on Wikipedia.
Until Obama took him off the trash heap.
I thought 1% was about, when
no,
I
he
read
needs to
it,
do
I thought it was
better.
1% as in like he's for the 1%.
No.
Okay.
No.
Maybe
that's not
Bernie
better.
will repurpose that though.
That's not going to work so well. 1%.
1% Joe.
All right.
1%
What is
Joe.
this? What is this song?
Theo Dillon has a new fun half song for us.
Okay, great. Here we go.
Shout out to Theo.
All right, folks. Fun half duddy. Fun half duddy. Ladies and gentlemen, we got to take a break. We're going to head into the fun half.
Take us into the fun half.
Famous fun half
the majority report. And of course, I must give the qualification that by half, we don't actually mean mathematically half. What we promise is nothing. I want to make that clear. But by half, what we mean is portion. We just fun portion just doesn't. It's not so catchy. We will take your phone call. We will take your IMs. And just a reminder, this show relies on its members to exist for just literally pennies a day. Pennies, but like enough pennies that you wouldn't want it in your pocket because it would be a nuisance to have that many pennies. But not so many pennies that you couldn't put it in your pocket. But not so many that you couldn't. So shed yourself for those unwanted pennies. For those unwanted, shed yourself for those unwanted pennies. Check it out, jointhemajority.report.com, jointhemajority.report.com. It's a zero-sum game. Holy shit, this is off the hook. Who did this one again? This is by Theo Dillon. Theo Dillon.
Sexy teenager.
Yeah, really interesting stuff. A little bit trippy.
I'm not gay. What if I was?
We can talk about it in the fun half. Take a quick break. Then. Fun half. I mean, it sounds a little bit punk.
Fire, one up, 6 foot long, a little bit, but yeah. Got that going for it.
And as a way of saying thank you, we give you the fun half. It may even be more than a half. The unpredictable fun half. I just made that part. And if you don't have the finances, send us an email at majorityreporters@gmail.com. Put in the subject line, hey, how about a break on the fun half? Something like that. I mean, they call it a market failure. This is not a market failure. This is intrinsic to capitalism. These are the intrinsic limitations to capitalism. Yeah, I mean, this stuff is off the pages. And just a reminder, this show is very dope. So if you're interested in dope, we will hook you up for just pennies a day. Many pennies. Well, times a day. I mean, pennies. Technically, I guess it's pennies.
Pennies are very useful currency because it's one cent. You can pretty much do anything in pennies.
That's right, man. This is the type of stuff that you get. So shed yourself for those unwanted pennies. Many pennies. A lot of pennies to have. You don't want to listen to it? You don't have to. Check it out. Jointhemajority.report.com. Jointhemajority.report.com. It's a zero-sum game. All right, we got to take a break. Take a break. You can head into the fun half, wherein we will have fun. We'll push it when we get back to it. And all right, we're gonna take a bunch of IMs. Folks, 646-257-3920. You can IM us through our app. It's a free app, folks.
There you have it. I like
that could be played at a club, like legitimately. I've ran that by some people. Like that could literally drop.
To have that level of production value rarely was pulled off by someone so insane. There you go, folks.
Not bad.
Oh my God. Ugh. Dave Rubin is getting really annoying these days.
What?
He just does like everything. It's just so this sort of like cloying. He was just mad that he does. You know, he's like supposedly joking like that he didn't get attention from something. I don't know. Somebody has an Etsy shop that is, it's etsy.com/something I can't remember /debate Sam Seder, and there are like graphics of Ruben and I like on mugs and stuff. I gotta find it. It was.
Have you heard about the SJW nonsense on the?
Let's go to the phones.
I don't even care about those guys. It really just honestly doesn't matter.
So much so that I can't even say their names. Let's go to the phones. Calling from 210 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
This is John from San Antonio. Good afternoon.
John from San Antonio. So good to hear from you, John. How are you?
I'm great. Great. It's been a great start to the Bernie Sanders campaign. They've already raised $10 million. Before his announcement, the national polling average for Sanders was at 15%, and an average of national polls. After his announcement, it's up to 22%, with some polls, going up to 27, 28%. Harris was at 11% in an average of polls in the month after her announcement. Now she's at 8% in those same national polls since Bernie's announced. Bernie's doing excellent in polling for black voters in the latest South Carolina poll conducted by Emerson College. From February 28th to March 2nd, Bernie's getting 15%, with Harris only at 9%. In the Ben Dixon and Armandi poll of Florida, conducted on March 1st through the 4th, Bernie and Harris are tied at 8% of the black vote. I think Bernie has exceeded all expectations as far as improvement among black voters in polling, but we still have a long way to go till the primaries start. Bernie's held two rallies in Brooklyn and Chicago. While most people think it's important to show everybody that he can still draw large crowds, I think he's actually having more of a strategic move to increase his percentage in urban areas. The Change poll of California, which is conducted in February 9th through 11th, divided the state into 6 regions. Bernie did the best in the rural areas, which are in the central area and the Central Valley and the northern and mountain areas. Bernie's worst areas were in Los Angeles and in the Bay Area. This scenario played out throughout the 2016 race, and the same thing is happening in 2020 as far as the polling goes. If Bernie's going to win the nomination, he's going to have to get a higher percentage of urban votes, and that can be achieved by going to large cities and getting the largest crowds of any politician in America during this early period. What do you think about this strategy of kind of veering from, the early states, even Iowa, New Hampshire, even though he did go to those obviously this weekend, and he's going to South Carolina on Thursday and Henderson, Nevada on Saturday. Do you think this going to these large cities to get more of a higher percentage of urban vote, do you think that's an effective way of campaigning in these early times?
Here's the thing, is that the normal dynamic of campaigning, first of all, I think the old paradigm of campaigns has changed. And I think it happened, it started to happen with the Dean campaign, and in part it happened with the Obama campaign in terms of primaries. And that is, it used to be the reason why you had to win early, decisively, was basically to convince the donor class and to convince people to continue to donate to you. Otherwise, you would run out of money. And there are going to be people who are going to be subjected to this. Like Elizabeth Warren, there are already, some talk, is she going to have the cash to make it through, even past Super Tuesday if she doesn't get a win? Bernie does not have these. I don't know about. This is all I can say about the strategy. Okay, I can't give a full-on assessment, but I can say this: the thing that Bernie does not have to worry about, based upon the fundraising he's shown up to this point, the number of people who have already committed to fund going forward, is that he does not need to come in first or maybe even second in New Hampshire and Iowa to continue the enthusiasm, right? I don't think there is going to be a time where at least his base of support is going to stop providing him funds unless he's way behind. And it's almost impossible to imagine in a field of this many people that there will be that type of dynamic. It's much more likely that there's going to be 3 or 4 people who are within 5 or 6 points of each other, more or less, coming out of all of these, these primaries. And so, he's going to have an advantage because all he has to do is to be in the hunt to have this fundraising juggernaut continue. And it's all going to come from small donors. It's not going to be a liability. It's conceivable to me there may be some candidates who they're getting their money from, corporations or from big moneyed interests, and that's going to be a bit of a liability in the context of this race. So I think it makes some sense for Bernie to go to where he was weakest last time and in some respects gamble, because he doesn't need. Generally, you need to make sure that you win right early so that you can get the confidence of people who are going to fund you later. He can afford to sort of like take some of that for granted. He's like expending. It's almost like he's basically, like he's expending. On some levels, it's almost like a mortgage strategy. Does that make sense, John? Like he's expending some of his equity that he knows he's going to have months down the road in terms of his ability to fundraise, and is expending it now to give him the room to broaden the map for him early on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense, and there's no doubt that he's going to keep that commitment, even if he doesn't do well in the first states. But I mean, if he can actually win, I mean, I think he has a much better chance of winning New Hampshire than Iowa,
of course.
obviously.
And that's not going to get him anything other than not a loss, right? Because everybody's going to say, well, it's Vermont. He's right next door to Vermont. So, but yes, I think but it's going to avoid a narrative that like you can't even win in New Hampshire. Forget it.
But if he can win in Iowa, I mean, everything is going to be turned on its head at that point. Because I can't really remember. I mean, it hasn't been that long to where those two states are the first two states, because there have been variations on that as far back as the 90s. But I mean, when somebody wins the first two states, it's almost impossible to be stopped. I mean, even Obama in 2008, he didn't win New Hampshire. Bush didn't win New Hampshire in 2000. I mean, it's extremely rare. And I think that if he can win Iowa, I mean, that'll put him on his way, because I'm still concerned. It's great to see him, doing better among Latino voters. It's great to see him doing, more among black voters. But, that first Super Tuesday still has me a little bit worried. And I think he should be spending more time. And he's already said that he's going to be doing it. He's going to be coming down to Texas. And he already has, did a few tours through here last year right at this time. I saw him twice. I talked about it on the show. So, if he keeps doing that and he keeps going to those Super Tuesday states so he can, really, hold his own on Super Tuesday, I think that's going to be, really great, and he'll be in a fantastic position at that point. So
we'll have a better sense coming soon, John. Appreciate the call.
All right.
Bye.
Okay, thank you.
Let's go to the phones. You call him from a 647 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, Sam. This is Jesse. I'm calling from Los Angeles. I want to welcome you to the Fall State YouTube Live. I have 4 easy questions. My first question, what is a man?
What is a man?
Yeah.
What is a man?
I think that might be a little above our pay grade. Gotta get some,
I don't know. I mean, is this like a philosophical question? I don't understand. I don't know that I'm qualified to determine what a man is. I can tell you. What?
My second question is, do you love all people?
Do I love all people? No, of course not.
So you don't love black conservatives?
Well, I don't know about specific people. I don't know about specific. Do I not love black conservatives? I don't know. I mean, which black conservative are we talking about?
The black conservatives who had their jobs stolen by the illegal aliens.
Oh yeah, those I don't love. No.
My third question.
Yeah.
Amazing. Do you support the hashtag #MeToo?
Do I support the hashtag #MeToo? I don't. Oh, it's a, do I support the hashtag? I don't really know what it means to support a hashtag.
You know who founded the Evil Woman March?
I'm not even aware of the Evil Woman March.
What's up,
Cruella de Vil?
lesbians, a bunch of black lesbians. Don't you love saying that word, Sam? Lesbians.
Oh, is that what that is? I have no idea.
I think
I don't
it's the
even know
real
who that
Jesse
dude
Peterson.
is.
Sounds
last
spot
question.
on.
Yeah, last question.
For the fallen Messiah, Barack Obama, and his wife, Big Mama Michelle.
I'm sorry. What was the first question? What was it? The big.
Did you vote for the fallen Messiah, Barack Obama?
Did I vote for Barack Obama?
Yes, the fallen Messiah.
The father's Messiah?
Fallen.
The fallen Messiah.
What do you mean the fallen Messiah? When did he fall?
Well, he is the child of the line.
He is the child of the line?
Amazing! Do you support the Great White Hope?
Do I support the Great White? Who's the White? I thought I was the Great White Hope.
Question too.
Donald Trump, the Great White Hope. I get the sense you're a progressive, and that's a beta, and it's abnormal for a male to be a liberal progressive.
All right.
Beta male.
Appreciate the call. I don't follow any of what was going. I totally got owned. Listen, if you listen to this show on a regular basis and you only get the sense that I'm a progressive, like you are just not listening. Like I feel like you're.
You need 21 questions to find out we're betas.
Yeah, exactly. You should just come right out with question number 1. Are you a beta? Of course. Calling from an 814 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Alex. I'm from Erie, PA.
Hello, Alex. What's on your mind?
So I wanted to talk to you guys about something that happened in my hometown very recently, sort of on the track of a weird question like Wolf Blitzer asked of Bernie Sanders, what if people like their insurance with regards to health insurance? So Erie is like the 4th biggest city in PA. It actually flipped for Trump after going for Obama twice, which didn't help when Pennsylvania flipped red for that election, since first time since Reagan. So there's 2 insurance providers in Erie. There's UPMC Hammett and Blue Cross Blue Shield. And for a while, and there's 2 hospitals as well, St. Vincent and UPMC Hammett. So one of the insurance companies also runs a hospital. So naturally, what sort of happens when competition starts kicking in is that UPMC Hammett decided that, we just don't want people going to that other hospital. So they got rid of something called, it expired actually back in on June 30th. This wasn't really covered all that well. But they got rid of the consent clause, which basically said you can't go to these other hospitals. So there is an article. It's one of the only articles from like the local news you can like find on it. Go Erie. It's sort of the headline itself, if people want to look it up, is Erie Family Navigates New Health Insurance Landscape. It's on goerie.com. Basically outlines about how a woman in her 50s who was basically going to the same like doctors and network and hospitals for basically all of her adult life, lost all of her doctors and all of that stuff that she's used to. And that's sort of an anecdotal thing, but I can also corroborate that literally every person who has insurance in Erie, PA, at the very least had to sit through meetings where they were like, wait, is my insurance the same? Am I keeping the same doctor? Like all this.
When did this happen?
This happened. So this was, I started hearing about it December of 2018. I think it still has to happen. I don't think it's in effect yet.
So in other words, this was not implicated in Obama's loss. This is just a different dynamic that's just taking place now. I mean, excuse me.
This is happening. We started hearing about this in December of 2018.
Okay.
It's supposed to go into effect on June 30th. And so this is something that I think that people with like Bernie and like whatever, Democratic nominee ends up being, but it's going to be Bernie, hopefully. Especially with something like a place like Erie where it flipped red. I feel like the first question on the people who are like going door to door, the first question out of their mouths should be, how did this insurance thing affect you? Because it affected pretty much everyone on some level. Even if like you didn't actually lose anything, you were still like at the very least sitting in meetings where people were losing things.
I'm curious to what extent they are getting, like when they say, why is this happening? I'm curious as to what the answers they're getting are, because if I had to bet, I would say a percentage of what the answers they're going to get is Obamacare. Like, I mean, that is, and of course it has nothing to do with Obamacare. It may have to do with the lack of some other proposals, but it doesn't have any direct bearing from changes that would have happened with Obamacare. Although maybe there was some, I don't know, some consolidation. But to the extent that Obamacare is implicated, it would have been very peripherally. But I the problem is when you have a vacuum like this in terms of providing an explanation. Certainly, the insurance company that has essentially this, this is an antitrust issue, of course, too, right? I mean, you're having the payer.
I mean, they're trying to build their monopolies. So that's just the end result of any sort of large corporation, is they want to take over an area.
Right, and
so it didn't really make sense for their business to provide insurance that would allow them to go to the other hospital that they don't want making money.
Yeah, I mean, what's shocking to me is like state regulators don't have an issue with this, right? Like the insurance regulators.
No.
Should the insurance regulators
Yeah,
the insurance regulators in Pennsylvania should be going to that insurance company and saying, you can't do this. I mean, this is when we talk about, runaway costs, this is another example of what is driving costs up. It's probably not the biggest force, because I don't know how much this dynamic exists, although it's increasingly existing.
There's another wrinkle in this. It's actually because only one of those hospitals has an emergency care center. Only one of the hospitals has an emergency room.
Which
now
one?
The insurance will still cover the insurance. The insurance will still cover the emergency room. But what will then happen is that they will get stabilized in the emergency room, and then they will have to agree to be transported to the other hospital, which
effed up.
Is expensive. Yeah.
Have you contacted any of where are the local politicians in on this? Like, I don't understand how.
So I'm actually going to school in Kansas right now. So I'm from, my hometown is Erie, PA, but I'm going to school in Kansas because that's just how my life worked out, weirdly. But I haven't been local in a while. It's been 7 or 8 years, but I go home there eventually, and one of the things that I was talking to my friends about is how they were sitting, it was very recent at that time that they were sitting through excruciating meetings.
That's interesting.
And everyone was freaking out about it.
That's interesting.
And so I really feel to your point about how they're probably getting fed this idea that it's Obamacare, people need to start going door to door and be like, no, this is just the end result of what happens when you have for-profit interest in this industry. You don't even really have to. I don't even feel like you really have to go full out. Just this is capitalism at work. You just have to point to this thing as this is how they're going to make money. This is what they're supposed to do. And if you don't want it to be this way, well then.
And this is at that story is at Erie.com. Will you send me a link to that at Majority Reporters?
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, man. Interesting story. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Thanks.
No problem.
Bye. That's nuts. But that dynamic, we're seeing more and more of this, where insurance companies are buying hospitals. And, of course, then you have a classic antitrust issue, right, where you have the payer, the insurance provider, is going to push people towards their hospital. I mean, it's very classic, and it's it is. There's a similar dynamic with net neutrality, right? We put the pipes in. We want you to use Verizon's music service instead of Spotify, Verizify, or whatever the hell they would call it.
One more entry for the book called "The Private Sector Should Not Be in Charge of Healthcare."
Yeah, I mean this is there's so many different genres of problems with this that type of relationship. All right, let's go to this. This is pretty exciting. You know, folks, we have spent a lot of time. We've devoted probably somewhere between 70 and 80% of our shows over the past year to the walk away movement, led by Brandon Starkin.
Yep. Sturpin.
Brandon Strorka.
Brandon Strachan. And as you know, we have spent the vast majority of the episodes of this program covering that. Well, he finally has a challenge, and this challenge is coming from my people. No, not the Democrats, the Jews. And here is Elizabeth Pipko on Fox and Friends. Was it this morning? Yeah. Okay. She's introducing Jexodus.
President Trump slamming the Democrats for failing to take tougher action against Congresswoman Ilhan Omar's anti-Semitic remarks.
The Democrats have become an anti-Israel party. They've become an anti-Jewish party.
And a group of Jewish millennials called Jexodus agrees. They are encouraging Jewish Americans to walk away from the Democratic Party.
The group says, quote, "We reject the hypocrisy, anti-Americanism, and anti-Semitism."
All right,
of
pause
the
it for 1 second. First off, the idea that they would use walk away without giving Brandon Strachan any type of credit whatsoever is really offensive.
He trademarked it.
But go ahead.
It's messed up.
And anti-Semitism of the rising far left. Progressive Democrats and far too many old school Jewish organizations take our support for granted. Here with more on the movement is former Trump campaign staffer and Jexodus spokesperson Elizabeth Pipko.
Pause it for 1 second. Hold on. Roll back the tape. I just saw something that I hadn't seen before. Stop. Okay. I didn't realize what I was looking at. First of all, they're using the Jewish star with the American flag. And I can't, they're Hebrew letters there. Okay.
It should be using the Blue Lives Matter American flag to make it really pop.
Right, exactly. Okay, continue.
For granted. Here with more on the movement is former Trump campaign staffer and Jexodus spokesperson Elizabeth Pipko. Elizabeth, good morning.
Good morning.
Let's start at the beginning. Jexodus means what?
Obviously, it's a play on Exodus, but we left Egypt, and now we're leaving the Democratic Party.
Okay, pause it. Now, there's a couple of things here. Wait. Before we get to that, she's a former Trump staffer.
No, that's what I was going to say. What is she exiting?
I
thought she just staffed for the Republican president.
No.
The whole point of Strika
Brandon
was that Brandon was that he was a fervent Hillary supporter.
Right.
I'm confused.
And he walked away. Now, here's the other thing. As you know, Exodus is one of the books of the Torah which talks about the Jews, at the time probably the Hebrews, the Israelites, leaving Egypt. So a Jewish exodus is redundant. It would be like saying, this year at our house, we're having a Jassover, a Jewish Passover. So
it's like Israel, but for Jews.
Jizrael is what we call it.
Jagels. Bagels for Jews.
Bagels for Jews, a jagel. Or maybe this year I think I'm going to celebrate Yom Kippur. It's a Jewish Yom Kippur.
Everybody's getting in on it. There's a new Kwanzaa for black people, apparently.
We left
Kwanzaa.
Kwanzaa.
Why didn't they just call it Exodus? Why didn't
or
they
even like Exodus Part 2?
Or Dexodus would at least be a democratic exodus.
I love how every single one of these segments just turns into like, that's fine. You want to do some little internet hustle, that's okay, but use apathetically correctly.
But it is pretty. I mean, it's not like Jexodus rolls off the tongue. It's not like, well, yes, I know it's not exactly. I know it's redundant.
It's obvious.
But the name's just too good.
There was a reason she was in a volunteer capacity.
I'm still daydreaming about Jizreal. Sounds great.
Really? That sounds more like nightmare day fever dream.
We're going to make Jaliyah. It's Aliyah for Jews. Okay, go ahead.
Obviously, it's a play on Exodus, but we left Egypt, and now we're leaving the Democratic
Party. Pause it. She left Egypt. We all left Egypt. That's what you say to the wise son or the third son. I can't remember.
Why did you decide to do this and start this movement?
I thought it was time. Obviously, we saw a lot of anti-Israel policies kind of start under the Obama administration, and it got worse and worse, and clearly we've seen it. It's been plastered on our TV screens the last month. There's anti-Semitism in the Democratic Party. They can hide it. They can do whatever they want. They failed to condemn it, and now it's there, so it's time.
Elizabeth, how much does this hurt the Democratic Party? The fact that it sounded like we were going to have a resolution voted on in the floor, non-binding, perhaps with Congresswoman Omar's name on it, and then at the 11th hour, because of all the pressure from the party's left, they wound up not naming her, and it was not about anti-Semitism, it was just generally about hate across the board.
I mean, the scariest part, obviously, was not the original anti-Semitism. It was the lack of leadership coming into play when they were supposed to come into play, condemn what happened, and they failed.
They should have condemned it.
It's like a condemnation, except for Jews.
A Jewish condemnation.
It's a Jewish condemnation.
I wonder if JPAC is getting behind Jexodus.
Oh my gosh!
I remember
it's like a Jewish AIPAC.
I remember when Obama went to AIPAC and he said, "I'm cutting off your funding, you goddamn shop owners."
You like to make deals.
My daughter's going to be Jot Mitzvahed.
You know, in my religion,
like a Jewish bat mitzvah.
In my religion, Jesus is a prophet like any other. I would never blaspheme him by calling him the Son of God. It's an insult to all prophets. But you people still are Christ killers. Goddamn gutter-dwelling bloodsuckers. I'm cutting off your aid.
I call it Geist dillers. Geist killers.
George.
Christ killers, but Jews.
That's what yeah.
We
Every
can't
day
cut off the Christ killer's AIDS
Oh,
unless you're willing to
gosh.
work with me and go door to door with me.
Every morning I file down my jorns.
Is there like, horns, but for Jews?
Put on your Jumical.
Did you see that new Eli Valley
Is there
cartoon?
a Jexodus
That
website?
is so funny.
Has anybody looked for the Jexodus.org? Let's see what we got here. Oh, there it is. And they use
like
the
the
same Exodus. Oh, yeah. They use the same
Wonder
Exodus.
how much they paid for that.
For that website?
For the logo.
For the...
Get a baseball hat with that.
Yeah, I would wear that, actually. That looks super cool, and nobody will have any idea what it is, so you're not promoting a bad
You
message.
should join to send a message and change the narrative.
You know what I find a little bit problematic about that writing, and I get that, like, it's Hebrew letters, and I think that's I think that's fine. It's just
a Hebrew font.
It's a Hebrew font. It's just that the idea of the star with the sort of almost looks a little bit like the Yud from
This kind of looks like a white supremacist website.
It sort of does. But one that feels like the Jews have they've taken over America, and this is what they're going to be doing soon.
Oh, speaking of which,
Jamaica.
Lepage,
Like, what?
good transition there.
What's that?
Good transition to the Lepage sound. Actually.
Oh yes, all right. Thank goodness, ladies and gentlemen, we have things like Jexodus. That, of course, is the movement to have Jews leave the Democratic Party, led by a millennial former Trump campaign staffer who has explained to us it's like Exodus, but for Jews. And we Jews, as we Exodus, what is, to continue the metaphor, what is our promised land? Who is there waiting for us in the promised land? We are all headed into the desert as part of our exodus, and we are going to be on the outside of Judea. And who will be there waiting for us at the promised land? Why, it's the Republican Party, with folks like former Governor Paul LePage of Maine, who explains why we should all come running into his hands in what is ostensibly a critique of the anti-Semitism in the Democratic Party. Paul LePage can't help himself.
Great to have you on, and we appreciate you making time for us this morning.
Well, my pleasure. I can tell you guys right off the bat, I feel completely vindicated from anything I've ever said in my life now that we have Omar in this country.
So go ahead and expound on that, why don't you, to begin with? So you have, of course, the anti-Semitism.
Listen, he's jumping right in by saying Omar in this country.
In this country?
Yeah, in
justifies
this country.
anything he's said.
Yeah, anything.
I was also going to say, you've said a lot.
He said quite a bit, but let's just hear his reasoning, because Paul LePage so supportive of the Jews.
Go ahead and expound on that, why don't you, to begin with? So you have, of course, the anti-Semitism from Representative Omar.
Unbelievable. I'll tell you, the Jewish people in America have been great supporters of the Democratic Party. In fact, that's where their money comes from for the most part.
It is literally an L.E. Valley drawing come to
Let
life.
me just come right out of the gate by saying it's super offensive, because you think about these friggin' bird beaks have been shoveling these ungrateful bastards their gold for so long. And you think about it, it's really ungrateful to not do something for Shylock when he's done for you. I feel vindicated in everything I've ever said in my life right now.
They have completely bought our politics. They own them. They bought them. And yet, this is the kind of treatment they get.
I mean, I feel as if I go to a restaurant for a service and I pay for a lunch. Well, these guys own the whole goddamn establishment. You still got this girl that shouldn't even be in the country to begin with.
Shouldn't be.
And she gets to disrespect them. Well, I feel vindicated in everything I've ever said in my life.
They own the media, and then people in the media criticize them. It's unbelievable.
That was a beautiful pivot.
Now, to be fair, we should say, and I want to be absolutely clear on this, that Governor LePage said nothing about Jews drinking the blood of young Christian kids. So I want to get that. I want to make that absolutely
they've
clear.
put down their chalices of Christian virgin blood, and the only thing they've done is look up to see if they could build a new money lending business or write a check to the Democratic National Committee, and this is the thanks they get. You know, I know those people have low self-esteem because I watched a quarter of a Woody Allen movie once, but this is a bit much. I feel
Very
vindicated in everything.
self-deprecating. Totally self-deprecating.
I think we should just let them keep on going, because there's no better advertisement for the fact that plenty of people in this right-wing Zionist coalition are extremely anti-Semitic. Plenty of them think that Jews are going to hell too. They just have some like really wacky beliefs. L.A. Valley actually did a cartoon about this very recently, where basically illustrating the fact that they can say whatever they want. They can accuse us of drinking Christian baby blood as long as they uphold the Trump of Israel.
Hey, what's purgatory for a Jew? It means it's perpetually a week before they collect the rent. Anyways, there's a lot of anti-Semitism in the Democratic Party.
Oh, my God.
Like, wow, guys.
Oh, boy.
I'm sure Meghan McCain's excited.
I'm sure. She
called in sick.
She called in sick. Apparently, she had to take some break from the
Wow, I bet she did.
She took some time off the
I
View.
bet she did.
She had to call in sick. She pulled a Brooks.
Need some self-care.
Megan Mondays.
least my dad isn't a war criminal.
Oh, Jesus. Oh, so insane. Calling out a 281 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Aldo from Illinois.
Hello, Aldo from Illinois. What's on your mind?
Hey, so about a week ago, you guys were talking about definitions of neoliberalism, and I think Jamie was the one who brought it up. And I had a couple thoughts about that. She was talking about how, you can look at neoliberalism as a sort of periodization or sort of like such a point in history or whatever. And you can look at it as an ideology and as an economic philosophy and et cetera. But I was thinking about it from an ideological perspective and the way that it functions in our society. And I thought that the first sort of example that I could give you of what I'm thinking here is the idea around modern monetary theory and how a lot of it focuses on the fact that we can do a lot of things with a fiat system, right? There's a lot of possibility and flexibility with that. But yet we still have a sort of ideological situation in the Treasury and the Reserve and everything that prevents that from happening. And I guess this is to say that maybe the fight or the point of analysis that we should get a new system from is from an ideological point of view and not so much from electoralism or things like that.
So
what do you mean?
If I understand you correctly, what you're saying is that, I think that's what the MMT people, if I understand you correctly, I think that's what the MMT people are trying to do. I mean, I think I think that is why you have people who are evangelical about it, is because they're trying to, look, it is. I mean, I don't know what this has to do necessarily with neoliberalism per se. Sure. in this narrow context, right? Because MMT is simply a different perspective on how you analyze our monetary system that is in large part a function of us becoming untethered to the gold standard, basically becoming, as you say, a fiat currency. And so
what I'm saying is that essentially the fact that we grew out of a sort of gold standard system and went to a fiat system, that in itself is indicative of the fact that we haven't evolved ideologically to the point where we can do something like MMT. And I mean that in the terms of
I don't think
people who own capital haven't gotten to that.
I think the point that the MMT people would say is that, I mean, that it's not a question of growing ideologically, changing ideologically to assess this. It's simply that the technical analysis of people is stuck in that that gold standard mentality. And I think that's their argument. That's the MMT people's argument, is that people are still thinking in terms of the old relationship that we had to money when it was tethered to the gold standard. And I think this is distinct from, neoliberalism or social democracy. I think it's distinct from that. I think it's just simply an analysis about how money works when it is a fiat currency. And so it may be the case that some of these people are neoliberals. It may be the case that some of them are, sort of social democrats. It doesn't matter. They still have this perspective of MMT. Like, I don't think that Bernie Sanders Frankly, I mean, I don't know where he is today, but I know that when he was on, when Stephanie Kelton was working on his staff, like I don't know that he had fully bought into the idea of MMT as in terms of as an accurate analysis of what you can do with money. So I don't know that it's not an ideological, and I don't know, frankly, that MMTers aren't neoliberals. I mean, like
there are plenty of Marxists who are also very critical of MMT from a leftist perspective.
Yes, but
so like it's not neoliberal ideology that's keeping them from getting on board.
It's not any ideology. Well, in the case of Marxists, I think it is their ideology that prevents them from viewing MMT as a form of analysis, frankly. Because it doesn't address what they want to address. And I don't think that MMT is...
well, isn't the idea of a gold standard like an ideology? I mean, the fact that we haven't gotten to the point where we don't think of a system of currency as having to do with a physical, object that's out there, but to do more with fiat in the government. Isn't that a form of ideology?
I guess. I think like increasingly less so. But I mean, I don't think that. I think it's a mistake to look at MMT as an ideology, and I don't think that you need to have a specific ideology to accept the analysis that MMT purports to provide.
I don't know. I think everything is influenced by ideology, and there are definitely people who come to MMT from different places. There are leftists who think that it makes sense. I'm not fully convinced quite yet. We'll see. There are right wingers. I would push back on the idea that MMT is essentially incompatible with neoliberal capitalism.
That's exactly what I've been saying.
Well,
is that
yeah,
it's not.
Yeah, the caller said that it is.
Well, he's saying that
he's saying that a neoliberal ideology keeps people from accepting MMT. And I'm saying that's not necessarily true. And I think if you dig into some of the talks and writings of a lot of MMT advocates, I think that they do uphold a version of neoliberal capitalism.
But this idea of a balanced budget, isn't that sort of this is something that has pervaded since the gold standard.
I mean, look,
listen,
when we spoke to Philip Murawski about this a couple of years ago, his definition of neoliberalism was not simply that it's a market solution for everything. It is also that it is a market solution, however, that the powers that be, as it were, would basically steer government in such a way specifically to help industry, right? Which goes beyond that. So they're not like full-on free marketeers. His argument is that, in fact, the free market is really more of a rhetoric, and that they are looking for the government to enhance the power of corporations in some fashion. And so, it is conceivable that if you were a neoliberal, I guess, you would see a threat to the idea that a government could feel like it could spend on and provide for people, because it would undercut the ability of a market, and specifically a specific industry, for providing where the government might be able to do so, right? So it's conceivable to me that you would be hostile to it because of your ideology. But I suspect to the extent that there's hostility towards it, it is because, in the same reason in many respects, and I say this without feeling 100% confident that MMT is the proper analysis for our way our monetary system works. But I would think that the dynamic is more like, people who have worked in film for 25 years, and the introduction of high definition video coming in. People are like, whoa, we can't do that because that's crazy.
I do know, having
exactly.
read Quinn Slobodian's book on globalists and the neoliberals, like the Milton Friedman and those sort of Mont Pelerin guys, they were all about balanced budget amendments.
Because I think in some level it curtailed the ability of the state to provide things that they wanted the market to provide.
Well,
it
we
might
are
be
seeing
too broad of a use of the term neoliberal, I think, in today's sort of discourse.
We are seeing
Is way too much.
Certainly,
Neoliberal describes like everything,
Everything.
and so there is like a precise.
I'm using
it.
the one that like Murawski.
Yeah, and I
used
think
in,
using the one that Murawski uses. Yeah, I mean, obviously, what you're saying is true, and what Matt just said
In
is
Slobodan, we had him on, and he's just talking about it from an international perspective, which again was about curtailing the sovereignty of nations.
Well, and
because they were afraid of how populists will get a hold of agendas and interfere in the corporate sort of agenda,
and specifically that these things that. The market policies aren't organic and naturally occurring. They are highly bureaucratic and regulated.
A Viagra boner.
And a result of government spending.
A result of I mean, that's what Sam always says
And
about
state
where
power.
you set the playing field.
But if you look at, let's say, the most recent snapshot of neoliberal thought, which I've seen, which is that report from the Niskanen Center, they do accommodate a mixture of markets and government programs. I don't know if that's because the Overton window has shifted or what, but I don't think that that's essentially incompatible with an MMT framework, which is also tricky because MMT is very slippery to define, and different people define it in many different ways, in many different contexts, depending who they're arguing with. I'm not going to argue like economics right now because I think that's going to be really boring, but I just want to emphasize again the influence of ideology on everything. Everyone's got one, right? And what I have seen is a pattern from some of these MMT people is they're looking for a way around changing the relations of production, right? They're looking for a way that capitalism can continue.
I hope you read the response to that critique.
And they're looking for a way that these inconvenient truths posited by people like Robert Brenner somehow we can get out of them. And that is what makes me a little bit suspicious.
I also think, though, historically, like I think Niskanen definitely they have to move a little bit more because the playing field has been shifted by Marxists and by MMT people and by social democrats and by movements. But on the other hand, I mean, there's a book that came out in 2005 called The 2% Solution, Fixing America's Problems in Ways Liberals and Conservatives Can Love by Matthew Miller, where, it's precisely this hyper, privatized but slight government intervention stuff. So that's always been their approach. It's just a question of how far along the scale you do it.
I mean, if
I'm thinking about how palatable it will be for people when we're talking about doing stuff like the Green New Deal, doing stuff like infrastructure investment.
MMT
to,
is super helpful.
Get them out of their
MMT
heads
is
that
helpful.
the balanced
It's
budget
functionally
is
helpful.
The thing that we need
from
to do.
a rhetorical standpoint, yes, it is helpful because it already has. I mean, look, MMT is helpful in that respect, but also the fact that the entire sort of deficit religion has completely collapsed on the right.
Yeah, Dobbs' monetary theory is pretty important.
has had as much impact, it seems to me. I mean, I think MMT has been helpful on the left, but really the fact that like Paul Ryan walks out of his control of the House with the largest deficits and debt that we've seen also functionally have that same impact. There's nobody to take it, nobody's pretending anymore, but appreciate the call.
If you're using it to answer the question, but how do we pay for it and get these social programs passed? Great. If you're using it as a way to say we do not need to change the relations of production and transition to a socialist democratic system, then that's bad.
Do you think that a job guarantee program changes the relationship to production?
No.
It doesn't.
No.
Oscar
so if the government is providing jobs, that doesn't in any way change the relationship between people who hire people and people who get hired.
I guess it depends what portion. Like, is
Of
the
course it
government
does.
doing production?
It may not. Yeah.
Well, I guess it depends what portion of the economy it's happening with that way.
So a job guarantee could. I mean, we don't. I mean, I guess if it comes down to the matter of degree, but of course it could, right? Because if I'm competing with the government on the government podcasts for people, it's going to change the relationship.
Yeah, I guess so. I've heard the jobs guarantee talked about in a lot of different ways from the left and from the right. Like, on the one hand, it would certainly be better if workers aren't so scared of being fired that they're afraid to like unionize or agitate for their rights or whatever. On the other hand, I do have pretty strong anti-work politics, and some people have described it as a kind of workfare, certainly better than the kind of workfare that we saw in the 90s, but like, do we want what's a little bit better, or are we looking to a long-term horizon where, people work way less?
I guess what I was addressing was and I think Henwood makes this critique that it does not impact it, that modern monetary theory does not impact the relationship between
No, I guess in a
production.
roundabout
But
way, then yes, it could be used
no,
to
in a
fund
direct
programs
way. In a
that
direct way, it
would
does.
help
in a direct way, it certainly could. I mean, that's the thing, is that I think
No, but the way that it's been used in arguments, and like right when I started here, some guy kept calling in and saying, "Oh, you just don't understand MMT. It renders your ideology redundant," which is not true.
I would agree that it doesn't render it redundant, but that's not the same thing to say it doesn't impact the relationship.
Sure, like I'm talking about the way it's used in arguments, not the way it's used in policy.
Yes, that IMR was wrong. Scott Walker's Texas Ranger, Exodus 2, Electric Jugaloo, Bullprog. Is this a true hypothetical in regards to the Cradle Act? Newly pregnant millennial parents use Cradle Act now, accrue a debt to their Social Security savings. Social Security gets cut per Trump budget. General Republican goals, these parents return to work paying less towards their Social Security. I'm not sure about the Cradle Act. I'm not sure I follow. Dewey Dave. Hey, Sam, I don't agree with Jamie much at all, but I live in Delaware, and it's objectively garbage place. I'm also down with Biden. Bad touch scandal prediction. Oh, okay. I'm also down with the...
Just look at the pictures that we already have of him. God.
He's rubbed half the shoulders in this state.
I feel like he's just done it with so much visibility. It's like the Marilyn Manson thing, where if you just do all of the stuff that embarrasses you publicly, then like nobody can bust you on it.
I mean, Marilyn Manson has been busted on
I've seen a bunch of those videos where he...
that one photo where like the biker's girlfriend is like grinding
She's
in his
into
lab.
it. That's
yeah,
not gonna
Pajama Boy.
She's
but
totally
like,
into
there
it.
might be others who aren't.
Incoming YouTube video entitled Jesse Lee Peterson cucks beta Sam Cedar. Jesse Lee Peterson is the guy who wants to have me on a show, right?
Are you sure you weren't already on the show just earlier
Was
today?
that him?
Was that actually him? I don't know.
No, I thought that was a bit.
I think it's a bit. I mean, I don't know him, so I don't really know, but I know that he's reached out to have me come on a show.
It'd
and
be
we're going
hilarious
to, right?
if he was sitting on.
What is it? But I can call in, but they wanted me to go out to L.A.
We just have to schedule a time where you want to be on the show.
Oh, okay. They do it in the morning. Well, I could do it maybe Thursday morning. Maybe I'll do it next. Not this Thursday, but next Thursday. From home. Or maybe I'll come in. What time is it?
Don't come in. Come on.
Why?
Because it's prep time. You're the.
You don't get in till 10:30 anyways.
No,
on
I
those
get in
days.
before 10:30. That's not true. But you're the first person.
I don't think
You're the
so.
first person who should understand the need.
You
for
get
that
in
prep
late.
time.
You just come in. You're just like, all right. I got this one. Got this thing. We're going to talk about the
Please
neighbor
don't try to talk over me, which is what liberals do.
Bolsonaro's neighbor, and we'll just go through this.
Well, that's actually really
45
important. I
minutes.
wouldn't mock the assassination of Marielle Franco.
I'm
You
not
can make fun of me
mocking
all
the-
you want, but I think undermining that story is actually very bad taste.
Come on, I'm just.
Did you,
don't get
there's
so
a new
touchy.
there's a new element of that story that just came out that you wouldn't that
wouldn't
apparently
know about.
Bolsonaro's daughter was dating the guy that pulled the trigger.
That's a coincidence. In some ways, that makes it less nefarious.
Leave
doesn't it?
politicians' kids out of it, you guys.
Right, like my dad is J.R. Bolsonaro.
I'm just really scared.
Daddy says
Guys,
it.
I'm just like really scared because if we can't murder favela activists anymore,
Daddy says if you love me, you'd kill someone on the council. God. Hey, crew, Bill Maher seems to be having more people on that are anti-SJW and blame millennials for everything. My parents, who are pretty much centrist Democrats, love him and agree with everything on that program. Do you think he poses a danger in the upcoming election? No. Fran from Philadelphia. You see, Philadelphia recently banned cashless stores as discriminatory against the poor. Dude, I think Massachusetts is the only other place in the country with the same ban, dude. Is this directly connected to the awesomeness cross-pollination due to the Worcester-Philly direct flights that started last year? Is that right? Like, that must be the only place you can get to from Worcester. I don't know. Just saying, dude. Also, check out this Dissident Peasant's latest episode, Garbage Politics of the Green Book. Chris Burdick.
The Green Book?
Is that the movie that just won?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's trash, though.
I never even heard that
So
movie.
I was confused because does that movie refer to Phil and I talking about?
Yes, it's those Green Books.
Those Green Books are actually really important in cultural history. Yeah. And then there's Gaddafi's Green Book. So I was like
not to do with that one,
a couple behind.
Chris Burdick, I just hope that Jexodus grows into an even bigger movement called Javiticus, which will then evolve into Deuteronomy. Oh, my God. It's Jumbers. It's the book of Numbers, but for Jews.
It's funny to make Jewish things more Jewish.
Whoa, look at that. It's like, all right, that's enough. I've been in New York for too goddamn long. How much more you need to Jew this whole operation up?
I'm having some matzo ball soup. It's matzo ball soup, but for Jews.
You fellas know Jerry. Speaking of Jays, you fellas know Jerry Seinfeld? And she was like,
Jewy Seinfeld.
Okay. I think you're allowed to talk about this, Matt, when you've had a bagel.
Jewy Seinfeld.
Have you never had a bagel?
Seinfeld for Jews.
I mean, no.
Have you still never had a bagel?
I mean, I've had like the ones you buy at stores.
Are you fucking serious?
You want me to put some sugar on it for you? Would that make you like it?
Dude, has it never even occurred to you to walk into like a bagel place?
No, go to
T.O.
Bergen.
Bagel.
Go to Bergen Bagels.
Go to S&S or something like that. H&H.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good places around.
All right, well, we know what it will be when we hit 3,000 patrons on TBS.
I'll do that.
Yeah, he'll finally eat a goddamn bagel.
I love Sarah Palin. Sam, you've been suspiciously quiet about the Robert Kraft story. Now you're fashioning yourself as some kind of leftist. My question is, will you stand with real leftists and call for the complete dissolution of this systemically criminal organization that is New England Patriots? I don't know if you saw our Instagram feed recently, but there was some upsetting pictures that apparently have been exposed. Care of Larry Murphy, who sent that to me, and we put it up on the Instagram. Are you seeing it?
Hi, Mrs. Kim. There's no lavender oil at the place, right? Because I don't want to get sick.
I posed with a lot of people. Posed a picture with a lot of people. Doe, I have Medicare and still had $10,000 out of pocket last year. Podcast.
He picked such a good picture of you for that.
We're not laughing about Medicare. We're laughing about the picture.
People should understand, Medicare as it stands now, you still have payments. Not only do you pay for Medicare, but you still have out-of-pocket costs. Under the Medicare for All proposal from Bernie Sanders and the even more aggressive one from Jayapal, free at the point of service.
Oh, and by the way, he just added long-term care Bernie just added long-term care into his Medicare for All plan following, lots of pressure from activists. So,
well, Jayapal had it at hers, and that's good news. Podcast by the Commonwealth Fund, The Dose, is excellent about healthcare in America and the rest of the world, usually 15 minutes long, showed how much Medicare recipients still have to pay after Medicare. I have to file appeals for denials of claims of submeds and prescribed medical devices that keep me well and prevent damage and more expensive invasive procedures. Thames Darwin. Sam, I'm IMing today to remind you Purim begins in 1 week from tonight. I don't celebrate Purim. I celebrate Jurim, the Jewish Purim. On that blessed evening, we will nosh on Jumentashen, which are like Hamantashen, but for Jews. Good Yontif.
Purim is so lit. It's like It's like Jalloween for real. Everyone dresses up in crazy costumes. I used to live in a Hasidic neighborhood. It was lit AF on Purim.
Oh, was really?
Yeah, and we would always have a party then too, because that was the one night when they were all like drunk and partying, so they wouldn't call the cops.
Oh, that's funny. Contagious Chameleon. Neoliberalism is market totalitarianism. There are Marxist MMTers. The two aren't mutually exclusive. Anthony from Baltimore. Hey, Sam, it's been a while. I just want to say hi. And I love the phrase apathetically steamrolling the truth. The apathetic steamroller is the nickname I gave to the stronger alpha male who routinely Spacebar.
Well done.
My fiance is an ER nurse, and she can confirm the same emergency room insurance transfer dynamic in Phoenix. They'll stabilize you and make you pay for the transfer because the insurance has a deal with one hospital. I think Biden is waiting until after the first quarter deadline so he can hide his fundraising until July. Oh, that's probably it. We will have other campaign totals in April. He can say propped up with big money and have 3 months before anyone sees the numbers. That's smart assessment. Calling from a 207 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
This is Eli from Boston.
Eli from Boston. What's on your mind?
So I've been thinking about the minimum wage, and a couple months ago you guys talked about it and how if it kept up with productivity, the minimum wage right now would be like $21.70-something cents.
Right,
is that right?
Right.
So my question is basically about whether or not you guys think it should reflect productivity, if the minimum wage by law should reflect that.
I would index it towards productivity. I don't know if I would go 1-to-1 necessarily, but I would certainly index it in some fashion. It should rise with productivity.
So, do you guys know how productivity is quantified? Because I don't. I think many people don't. Obviously, I take you guys at your word because you guys have looked at the studies and stuff, but.
I mean, I think it's basically, I mean, off the top of my head, I would imagine it is work hours, like GDP divided by work hours, something to that effect.
Okay, that makes sense. Last question is there an update on the whole billboard situation with Dave Rubin debating you or not debating you?
I don't know. You know what? That's a good question. I haven't even thought about it. I was not involved in that endeavor whatsoever. So
I know.
I am in the dark as much about you as you are. And I guess after vacation, I had totally forgotten about it. But that's a good question. Is that GoFundMe still up? I think
the GoFundMe raised a lot of money.
Well, I hope that whoever it was that set it up is going to put up a billboard. I certainly. I
hope so too.
I will keep you updated on that.
It's so funny whenever. Oh, sorry. It's so funny whenever you tweet back at Dave Rubin because I'm like, I know he's never going to respond. He's probably never going to block you either. But like,
he's muted me. I'm quite convinced.
Every time he sees one of your replies.
There's no doubt in my mind that he's muted me. But the thing that is like I think most hilarious to me is that. Anytime he tweets now, it feels like half of it is full of people who are giving him grief. And I think he must realize that something's going on. Wait, is that it?
I think this is it.
Holy crap. Oh, my God.
Wait, I think we got the billboard up? Yeah, I don't know. I can't verify whose image you're...
Is that real?
Yeah, is this Photoshopped or is this real?
I appreciate the call, Eli. What?
It was a digital ad like this, so yeah, this is real.
It's not real.
I saw that in the Discord.
Oh, yeah.
Why didn't you tell me about it?
We'll try to figure out if this is real or not. It looks. I don't think they would shop it through all these different wires, so I think it's real.
Oh my God, that's awesome! When was that up?
February 5th.
Paid for by the debates.
Why didn't somebody tell me about that? That was February 5th.
I you'd seen it. God.
No, I hadn't seen it.
I haven't seen this. This is the first time seeing it. That's pretty funny.
Oh my God, that's unbelievable.
But you want to throw up the T-shirt too? I sent you an email with a screenshot.
Will you send me a link to this? I want to frame that. I want to print out that picture and
I want to show it to my daughter. See, being a relentless pest does things, Mila.
I didn't. It was not me.
That's amazing.
That's unbelievable. Let's go to the phones. Calling from a 978 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Sam, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, hey, this is Eric calling from New Jersey. How you doing?
Good. How you doing, Eric? What's on your mind?
Good, good. So I want to talk about Medicare for all.
Okay.
Just briefly, I don't know if you guys caught on to this, but that guy that called earlier with that weird 4 questions thing, he was doing a Jesse Lee Peterson shtick.
Okay.
That's like
yes.
the amazing, and like Children of the Lie, like those are standard Jesse Lee Peterson idiotic lines. And I don't know if he was a fan of the show.
I'm going to go on his show, but I didn't quite realize. I mean, I got to look into it maybe.
Yeah, and then I think the other weird thing he did with the 4 questions, with your last name is Seder, like Cedar, 4 questions. I think that was just some goofy attempt at. That's just the way my brain works. Anyway, yeah. So I'm a physician, and I obviously have a kind of big stake in Medicare for all. I'm a big supporter of it, but it kind of the way that it's been getting discussed is kind of nebulous. You hear a lot of people talk about it in different ways. To what extent are we going to cover everything versus supplemental policies, insurance policies? And you look at different politicians and what they've prescribed with how they want to go about this. Do you guys feel strongly that I heard you guys talk about this a couple episodes ago, where I'm just trying to understand your perspective. Are you opposed to any plan that would involve, preserving the sort of private sector as a supplement to, say, a Medicare for all system that would cover a high percentage of overall costs, and then having, sort of a social safety net to cover people that can't afford the private sector, or maybe a more robust, not-for-profit sector within the private sector of insurance companies? Or are you all for, that's it, just single-payer Medicare for all, no co-pays, no out-of-pocket, transactions in healthcare?
I mean, when I read like Jayapal's program or Sanders' Medicare for All program, that's the one that I like. I mean, I'm not so concerned about private insurers being around for more sort of like elective surgeries, I guess, or if there are. I'm trying to think of like what other reasons why you would have it. I mean, I'm not against the existence of the private insurance industry. I just don't want to have to deal with it at all. And so I want to be able to, and according to Jayapal, the providers at the end of the day will probably get pretty close to what they're getting now on some level. I mean, the biggest driver of costs are, it seems to me, drugs, and then basically like inefficiencies. And by inefficiencies, I mean like
administrative overhead. Physician salaries comprise only a couple percentage of overall healthcare. I'm not really worried about that. Not just
administrative, but also procedures. Like there's I always reference this this piece by Atul Gawande, but it to me it was the most seminal piece, where he compared 2 towns in Texas and their Medicare reimbursement rates, and one was 30% higher than the other. They had the same health incomes, everything, it was controlled as much as you could. The only difference was, in one town, doctors owned owned devices, and they would prescribe these devices, right? Like, you need an MRI for this, and prices went up. I mean, I'll tell you something. Like, the other experience I had with this was, forgive me for getting too explicit, but you're a doctor, you don't care.
But we do. Watch
it. I have had 2 colonoscopies at this point in my life. I started a little bit earlier than most because of family stuff. And the first time I was I had propanol. And apparently this is very common.
Propofol?
Yeah, propofol.
Propofol, you mean?
Yeah, this is common on the East Coast. When you go in for the colonoscopy, they bring in an anesthesiologist who puts you out with this Propanol. And then the doctor, basically, his job is just or her job is just to, stick the pipes up and look around and then get out and go to the next one.
Yeah.
And the second time around, my insurance company would not cover that. They would not cover the anesthesiologist. And I'm like, I don't understand. And they said, you can get local. And I'm like, local? Like, what does that mean? God. Now, as a layperson, I didn't know what that meant. But all it meant was it was some other type of anesthesia that you did not require.
Yeah, they were talking about conscious sedation. They were talking about giving you a little fentanyl and Versed, which kind of makes you go to La La Land. The problem with that is you're groggy the entire rest of the day. It takes longer to wear off. Propofol is better because you're in, you're out. It wears off in seconds, and you're good.
That was not my experience at all. It was the reverse. I felt great for 2 days after the Propanol. The other one was just like I was out, and then I came to, and I was fine. But the difference is that the doctor who would do the Propanol, he set up basically a factory where he would just go in and do much more an hour because he was offloading the cost of the anesthetist to somebody else. So he was maximizing his profit at the cost of everybody else. Whereas the second time I got it, the doctor himself administered whatever it was that put me out into La La Land. From my experience, they were almost identical experiences. I wasn't aware of anything. But it was much cheaper. It was $500 cheaper the second time around. Now, and I think a Medicare for all will basically say you don't need that. And apparently it's coastal. Like on the West Coast, they barely use that Propanol. On the East Coast, they use it more. And that to me just sounds like that's not a medical necessity. That's just a business thing.
They won't even. Beef. Okay, I did a story on this that never ran for annoying reasons. Maybe it still will. They won't even give you conscious sedation for comparably painful and invasive gynecological procedures. And I talked to doctors about it, and it's 100%. Well, it's mostly because it's just too expensive, and doctors are hemorrhaging money every second of the day.
They will do it under circumstances like if someone has autism or mental retardation or vaginismus, somebody who just clearly can't tolerate it. But
or if they make a big fucking deal about it, I did.
But I guess the point the larger point I want to make is that when you talk about this type of system you're describing, where we just kind of would totally eliminate any presence of insurance, I think one of the easiest ways to defend Medicare for all is by saying, look, the rest of the developed world has done this.
Yeah.
Every other industrialized major.
Well, it is insurance. We do have insurance. It's just government administered insurance.
You forfeit that point. You forfeit that point when you talk about the complete elimination of insurance, because that's not true. A lot of the developed countries worldwide do have they have a presence of the private sector. Does. I mean, you take France, for example, consistently ranked the number one healthcare system worldwide. Their sort of Medicare for all adjacent system covers 70, maybe 80% of overall cost. Then you make up the rest of it by purchasing a private insurance plan. The difference is it's strictly regulated. They take out the profiteering motive. They've got a strong social safety net. So if a single household can't withhold the costs, it's on the house after that. Germany, they've managed to sort of universalize their healthcare system by using the individual mandate. But the reason that works is, again, it's not for profit, and there's a strong secondary social support that makes sure no family is either being economically harmed, or you're making sure that there's no prohibitive nature of cost, so that some people are paying in out of pocket or purchasing whatever kind of supplemental plan. But the point is, you're universalizing it by making sure there's nothing prohibitive. And I think that's really going to be the strongest aspect of Medicare for all is we spend too much money on secondary and tertiary care because people don't want to go to the doctor when nothing's bothering them. And you let these very indolent, very easy and cheap to treat chronic illnesses like hypertension, diabetes, hyperlipidemia, that are very cheap to treat. We're saving money by not covering Joey when he turns 25 years old between then and 45, but it's maybe going to cost $100 a year to take care of that.
Right. It's the functional equivalent of saying
chronic illnesses. Now he's on dialysis by the time he's 40, and now he qualifies for Medicare, number one, and his care is now going to cost $50,000, $100,000 a year.
Right.
When you add that up, I think that Mercatus study, I don't think factored any of that in when they were, talking about how so-called expensive this is going to be the importance of, not only disease prevention, but health promotion, which are not profitable modes of care, but are infinitely less expensive and, more efficacious in terms of the whole healthcare system. But again, the idea that we necessarily have to eliminate the private insurance as opposed to keeping them around is sort of a secondary nature.
I agree with you on
that. Hill to die on.
I agree with you on that. I think that is I'm more interested in getting somewhere than I am in getting to that point where I don't have to fill out. If somebody else wants to deal with private health insurance, God bless them.
Would lavender allergies be considered essential care or a specialty?
Essential.
Appreciate the call. Thank you very much.
This also points at one of the issues with the rhetoric of Medicare for all, because what Bernie is introducing is better than Medicare. It's more of a single payer system. So I get it why they did it that way, because people already know what Medicare is and generally like it. But it also makes it possible to muddy the waters like we've been seeing with like pretty much every Democratic candidate running.
Yeah, that's true. Calling from a 478 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hello, this is Jeff. I'm calling from the Jewish Georgia, which is just Georgia.
Oh, interesting. Hello, Jeff from the Georgia.
Weird how that worked out, man. Hey, I was pleased that I got a little plug earlier on your show. Yeah, people want to learn more about both the real life Green Book and the dog shit movie that made millions of dollars and took home 3 Oscars. I did episodes on both those things. It's pretty amazing. So everybody come for the anti-Italian American rhetoric and stay for the racial politics deconstruction. They're fine episodes. I worked very hard on them.
Check them out, folks. Dissident Peasant.
Yeah, dissidentpeasant.com, always. One of the things is healthcare is on everyone's mind that I've always really thought about as a somewhat creative type all my life. I mentioned it before. I did used to be a musician full pay professionally for a little while. And, what I think about is all these GoFundMes, basically, like a third of them are all for medical debt. And I don't want to get all, capitalist entrepreneurial on you, but, part of me really does think that the human spirit is a glorious and amazing thing if you just give it a little bit of room to flourish. And a lot of times people really do just need a little bit of money to get off the ground. And I want people to think about the effects of something like single-payer healthcare would have on the world. How many pieces of art and music, projects of all different kinds that we will never get to see because people are too busy scrapping just to pay their medical bills. Everything that we're missing out on, we can't even imagine it. Literally, we can't imagine it.
I would expand that. I would expand that to how many people are working at jobs they don't want to work at because they are tied into their health care. I mean,
that's absolutely true. And even if they're just going to take the time to spend more time with their family or get better at cooking and not eat out so much or whatever, that's still human flourishing, right? That maybe doesn't show up necessarily in any numbers that you look at, or maybe it does depending on the kind of numbers that you look at, but it doesn't matter. It's all good. That's what it means to be a person. And so much of people's lives is tied up in things that don't have nothing to do with being a person. It's got everything to do with just trying to survive. And single payer healthcare, is the littlest big reform, the biggest little reform that could have a lot of amazing knock-on effects, I think. We literally can't imagine.
I would only add that the former CEO or the former VP of GoFundMe, Dan Pfeiffer, still retains a significant financial interest in the company that makes a third of its money from medical crowdfunding campaigns. So maybe he should disclose that the next time he talks about why we're not ready for single payer on the podcast that shall not be named.
Appreciate the call, Jeff.
Pod Save America.
Thanks, Amar. Y'all have a good one.
You named it.
I'm sorry.
Michael was confused.
I didn't know which one she was talking about. My bad.
This is sort of funny.
So you sorted all GoFundMe.
So here's a good lesson in what you should not do if someone is making the case that you have an outsized power in our society and therefore should be subjected to some type of scrutiny and regulation by the government so that you do not have this outsized authority in our society. Here's Charles Payne trying to justify why Facebook did the right thing by pulling down Elizabeth Warren's ads talking about her introduction of antitrust measures or proposed antitrust measures to break up Facebook.
Elizabeth Warren going after Facebook, unliking it for a while, then Facebook made a reversal. Charles Payne, host of Making Money on FBN, here to tell us the story. So she put some ads on Facebook saying break up Facebook. Facebook took the ads down.
Right.
Because they said she used the Facebook logo.
Right.
And then they later put them back up.
Yeah.
What's happening?
I mean, if someone put a tag on my back said kick me, I'm going to take it off. we went through this in 3rd grade.
Nobody did that to you, Charles.
Kick me.
I mean, kick me. I'm like, okay, no problem. Keep it there. Of course I'm going to take it off.
Why does Charles Payne think he's that funny?
You know, it's creepy because that probably did play a role in Mark Zuckerberg's decision to remove those ads.
I don't know if Mark Zuckerberg
He probably thought back to high
decision.
school, and
Mark
he was like,
Zuckerberg
"Oh,
had
not
"Go
again."
Kick Me" signs put on his back a lot.
That there's no doubt.
That's how he gets to feel like a persecuted victim, even when he's an oligarch.
But this, I mean, the
or was
Facebook,
it a culture jammer inside Facebook who was like, let's really underscore the importance of her point.
I just want to, yeah, exactly. I mean, Facebook, we know that most people get their news from Facebook, at least in part, if not in, the majority. This is where they get their news.
Yeah.
This is where news stories come from. And the idea that they have the ability to censor in that way is highly problematic. Now, you could nationalize it, but then, of course, you've got a real problem, I think, with the U.S. government being in the business of determining if some stuff is, borderline, an exception to the First Amendment. And so I think, nationalizing Facebook or Google, I find to be highly problematic. I think there's a lot of things that everything would be tied up in the courts. Better to make Facebook not the sole means in which people get their news, but rather there be other platforms.
If Charles Payne's back was the place where most of the people at his high school got their news, then
That's
there
right.
would be a problem.
That's right. Oh, incidentally, if you need to know the change in the cafeteria schedule, it's on the back, on my back.
Exclusively on my back.
Exactly.
They're just trying to do something about bullying, okay?
But how short-sighted, too. I mean, this is the other thing, is that these are not very bright people. If you wanted to make Elizabeth Warren's case for her, that's what you would do. And that's why they put it back on.
Well, I almost wonder if Warren's people didn't include the Facebook logo for that purpose intentionally.
Oh, they definitely were goading Facebook into doing it. There's no doubt. And that was smart of them to do that, frankly.
Let's bring back Friendster. Yeah. Nobody hated Friendster, right?
I was not on that. I didn't know anything about that. This is pretty impressive. I want to show this this clip here. The State Senate Judiciary Committee in Arkansas took up the discussion of a bill on Stand Your Ground and basically rammed it through the committee process. And one of the state senators, Stephanie Flowers, basically lost it because of the lack of debate that was taking place in this Judiciary Committee. And she basically gave the chair an earful. Here is State Senator Stephanie Flowers in the Arkansas legislature.
I'm Gary.
And I don't know really where Mr. Ballinger is from, but I can tell you that for a long time since I've been back here in Arkansas, I have feared for my son's life. Now, he's 27, he's out of Arkansas. And I thank God he is. When you're bringing up crap like this, it offends me. And then to limit the debate too, this is crazy. You don't have to worry about your children, Will. I worry about my son. And I worry about other little black boys and girls. And people coming into my neighborhood, into my city, saying they got open carry rights, walking down in front of my doggone office in front of the courthouse. That's a bully. Do I have a right to stand my ground with some crazy ass person walking around with a doggone gun? I don't know what the hell he intends to do. But I know I am scared. I feel threatened. Just like some of y'all walking around here up in the legislature with these damn guns. That, what's his name, Garner came in here, walking around here with a damn gun under his coat. You can see the damn print.
Senator, you need to stop.
No, I don't.
Yes, you do.
No, I don't. What the hell are you gonna do? Shoot me?
Senator.
Senator shit. What the hell? I'm telling you, this deserves more attention. You want to come up here with all these little NRA bills and bills that Alec have and all that stuff. I'm talking about my son's life. And I'm talking about the lives of other black kids. Do what the hell you want to do. Go ahead, but you can't silence me. You got your damn silence gun out the damn chamber today, but you are not going to silence me.
Senator Flowers, if anybody hasn't tried to silence you, it's me.
We literally just watched him try to silence her.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
That was really, really good.
I mean,
every single person, GOPer, who's pushed these gun open carry bills, that's what they should get every single time.
Exactly. And she's right. These are basically written via Alec, and all those legislators are sent to Alec, retreats, and they get their marching orders, and then we see these laws go state to state to state. Also, this just in. Can we put up this breaking story from from a former CIA analyst, Evan McMullen, former Senate candidate too, right? Didn't he win?
Presidential candidate.
He was a CIA analyst?
Did he run against Trump? I forgot. Oh, he got in Utah, right? He did well in Utah. He apparently has been doing some digging, and he actually found an actual line from the Democratic Socialists of America website. You could probably find this at, DSA.com, or you could probably just Google Democratic Socialists of America, and then the website will come up.
On the dark web. Or no, it's not the dark
Now,
web.
this is a quote. In the short term, we can't eliminate private corporations, but we can bring them under greater democratic control. There you go. I'll go right back at you, man. They call themselves socialist because they are socialists. I mean, really? Are we? I mean, this is the this is the fear that private corporations are going to be brought under greater democratic control. Like, maybe union members will sit on the board of directors, or maybe there'll be management councils. Or
this is what he was sent around the world as a CIA operative to help stop from happening.
I did not know the part about him being a CIA analyst. That makes it so much funnier.
Oh yeah, that's how he figured it out.
That was his initial brand proposition.
Yeah, that was his whole. He was like, I'm the guys in the CIA who's worked for, what was it, Paul Ryan? Did he work directly for Paul Ryan? He staffed for a prominent Republican.
Oh yeah, I don't think it was.
And then came out and was just like, I learned a thing in CIA tradecraft about not being overtly racist. See you on PodSave. Those idiots made him. Did he run for
One of the
president?
things when you work for the CIA you learn is that the words in between the quotes are what they say. Oh God, I love that. Oh boy.
It's like more and more you realize, like, I feel like we've all been a little bit gaslit into thinking this class of people is at least like competent, you know, that's their main selling point. She's the most qualified candidate of all time, but like, no, actually they're not. They just wear the lanyards and they try to trick you.
Stop it. Knock it off.
All right, let's play this Ilhan Omar clip. This is pretty good. So, as you know, Ilhan Omar the other day had comments about Barack Obama, which, you know, if you've listened to this show over the years, would not come as a surprise to you. We had plenty of critiques for Obama in real time. We had many guests who, particularly in the run-up to the 2012 election, who, and I disagreed with this perspective, but certainly we aired it on this show on many occasions that Obama was actually the more evil of the two evils because it was harder for people to understand the implications of his policies. Now, he moved to the left to some extent in his second term, but nevertheless, Ilhan Omar had said, we can't only be upset with Trump. His policies are bad, but many of the people who came before him also had really bad policies. They just were more polished than he was. And that's not what we should be looking for anymore. We don't want anybody to get away with murder because they are polished. We want to recognize the actual policies that are behind the pretty face and the smile. She talks about the droning of countries around the world on Obama's watch, the beginnings of the caging of kids at the U.S.-Mexico border. This was not a practice. Trump took it to a different level, but this was not a practice that started with Donald Trump. And the hope and change offered by Obama was a mirage. So people caught up with her. I guess it was Fox News, or who is it that? Not sure who caught up.
I thought it was Fox. I think it's Fox News.
And the question was that Fox News was trying to ask, like, "Oh, is Obama and Trump are the same?" And it's I don't, you know, it's like I think basically we have just a crop of younger, more savvy Democrats who are able, I mean, their politics is one thing, but it's also just sort of their ability to not be cowed in the same way that the older generation of Democrats were by the existence of a camera and a microphone. Like, there is not the same legitimacy offered to being on television or being in a newspaper. Like the media world has flattened in some degree in terms of like what is constituted intimidating or prestige.
Well, it also helps when they don't have to equivocate, right?
Well, but my point is that's why they don't have to equivocate.
Well, no, it's
that's
also
why they don't
like
equivocate.
They're not doing this hypocritical dance of like, yes, you can have the things that you want. We would love to have single payer health care, but the Republicans won't let us, things like that.
Yes, but there is that does not explain why they are as free to say certain things which others might say in private. And here is Ilhan Omar exhibiting that.
Think that President Obama is the same as President
Absolutely not. That is silly to even think and equate the two. One is human, the other is real.
Is it true that
She's asked, are Obama and Trump the same? And she goes, that's silly to equate the two. One is human and the other is not.
Man, she's
Yes,
so
queen.
awesome. She's so great.
That's awesome.
Ilhan Bros.
And again, that's
Ilhan
not the ability to do that in that context has nothing to do. It's not tethered to ideology. You've had outspoken, Joe Biden, in some respects, is outspoken. His politics are garbage. But the idea of addressing something like that and being able to sort of just be that sort of fluid and unflinching because they don't care.
Well, frankly, though, on just like the pure media level, I mean, that is one of the highlights, frankly, of Joe Biden's career. Like, he helped cap Rudy Giuliani when he was like, he's walking and they stick a mic in his face. And this was definitely still a period of time where everybody was like, oh, that's Rudy, you know? And he just said, everything he says is a noun, verb, and 9/11.
Right.
And that punctured him. I mean,
Right.
like, that actually mattered. So it is.
And it's one thing to do that after you've been a senator for 30 years or whatever it is. It's another when you're like 6 months in as a freshman and you're being attacked from all sides and you're just like,
I'm going to go at Obama now.
She's the best.
She's my Khaleesi.
She's the best.
I'm going to appropriate all of the liberal feminist buzzwords.
all right, folks, we've run out of time. I'm going to do 3 IMs and then get out of here. I apologize to the callers. We, of course, have 25 people on hold. Can only get to about 10 today. Did our best. And we'll do 3 IMs and get out of here. Water boat for Kashmir. Jewish Amy equals Jamie. You know what makes Janine Pirro's rant about Ilhan Omar much worse? She used the same Ilhan Omar image as the Islamophobic West Virginia poster about 9/11.
So did Jonathan Chait.
Nice. Theo Dillon, pro tip, if you're going to submit a song for the show, make sure it's mixed in mono.
Yeah, sorry about that, Theo.
Horton's Pack Court. Hey, crew, thanks to yesterday's guest for jarring loose memories of my conservative upbringing with the mention of Pizza Hut stuffed crust pizza. Does anyone remember the commercial with Rush Limbaugh? I do. I remember hearing it from my bedroom. I remember waking up the next day and being told I wasn't going to school. Why, I asked. We're getting pizza. Larry Elder on the radio shaking the windows. Eat it the wrong way, he told me, like Rush. But, Dad, I think this is too much cheese. No, big and strong like Uncle Newt. Thank you, Dad. Miss you, Papa. I just saw that there was a Donald Trump one, too, but seriously, F that guy. Oh, my God. That's nuts. Melissa Meaner, I've been volunteering for Text for Bernie, and I've probably sent about 2,000 or 3,000 texts. If people say they aren't voting for Bernie, we ask them who they will support, and literally no one has said Biden. A lot of Harris or Warren. A couple of Mayor Petes, but no Biden. Also a couple of F-off commies, but that's to be expected. 2 more. West Coast comrade. Biden's nickname should be Back of the Bus Biden, and his campaign slogan, Biden 2020. I calls him likes I sees him. And the final IM of the day. Tim Apple. Did you see Trump talk about Marilyn Lockheed? See you tomorrow.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the light bar, but finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light shining bright. I guess somewhere the choice was made for the option where you don't get paid, for the road that bends before it finally breaks you. I guess